Elf I am the protagonist template, Invincible chapter 581 to 600. 581. A lost thing, a dark and sacred existence. Xiao Huang is safe and sound, and Doran Baruto is an unexpected joy. The trip to reverse the world has come to a successful end. Before leaving, Baizi expressed his gratitude and apology to Giratina. After all, what to say? Xiao Huang was also saved from being captured because of Giratina, and several of his subordinates, Lai Kong, were beating each other indiscriminately. To this, Giratina said nothing to say. The winner of the fairy world is king. And it rescued Xiao Huang entirely by its own will, and had nothing to do with Baizi. Well, this attitude is understandable. After all, whoever is beaten indiscriminately like this will not give the other party a good face. But understanding is understanding. Baizi has no psychological burden on this. He beat him, anyway, he is too modest, not to mention that fighting in the elf world is the norm. Is it possible that he road travel now? Do you want to apologize to those wild elves who are holding experience points? That designation is impossible. Shrugged. Baizi glanced at Xiao Huang and Xie Mi who were saying goodbye to Giratina. In comparison, Giratina was much more amiable to Xiao Huang. But also normal. Unless it's a special evil elves, Xiao Huang, who has the purest mind and the power of vibrant, in the elf world, can almost be regarded as a heartthrob in the elf world. As long as it's not relative. Get along. There are almost no people who don't like her. Of course, it also includes Baizi. Well, the kind that is very pure. After all, Xiao Huang is still young. By the way, why were you excited before? I mean, when you beat up Giratina. Taking advantage of Xiao Huang, Xie Mi, and Giratina reminiscing about the past, Baizi was half bored and half curious and asked telepathically. Well, isn't it very popular? Visible to the naked eye, the expressions of the three legends suddenly froze, and even the paint on Necrozma's face flashed. Participating in the siege for some small gain is indeed a loss of demeanor. Kang Shang lowered his head slightly. Bullying the weak with the strong is indeed not my style. Lai Kong sat pondering in his heart. Coveting shortcuts and inflicting violence on other spirits, then what is the difference between me and those humans in the ultimate metropolis? Necrozma was deeply ashamed. Also responded. Because of the feedback from Lai Kong's eye before, I couldn't restrain my greed for a while. Oh, it turned out to be treating the other party as an experienced baby. Baizi instantly understood. Then he shrugged and said, in general, the rewards of motivating the gods are linked to the strengths of the two parties. Next time, let me make arrangements to maximize the rewards. Change it. Good. Understood. Yes. Lai Kong's eye, Kang Shang, and Necrozma immediately put aside their previous shame and replied simply. Punishing Hoopa, who was nestled in Baizi's arms, blinked. It always feels. At this moment, the three seniors seemed to have lost something important. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot. At the same time. The other side. After saying goodbye, Giratina suddenly condensed a triangular glass, and Baizi glanced at it. Into the hands of Xiao Huang. The streamer flickered. After finding out the specific information about that thing, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Broken interface. The channel connecting the reversed world. You can hold this to enter, or summon Giratina as the lord of the reversed world. Giving this thing to Xiao Huang is almost equivalent to sheltering Xiao Huang under its divine power. This is also good. Xiao Huang is equivalent to having a backer and amulet of the peak of God's domain. After Baizi, there is no need to worry about the safety of this little girl anymore. One more. With Xiao Huang's attitude of giving and begging for him, Giratina became his strength from the side. Anyway, as long as he wanted to, Xiao Huang could not refuse him. Summoned beast, of Giratina is designated not to run. Baizi pondered in his heart. At this moment, Xiao Huang had already brought Xie Mi and returned to Bai Zi's side under the support of Giratina's ghost energy level. Brother Bai Zi. ... Ask for flowers. Fell to the ground, she ran to Bai Zi's side, staring, then turned her hands behind her back, and moved her heels and toes around to move closer to Bai Zi, and then moved closer. A little, until it was close to the distance of Bai Zi's shoulder, and then he pursed his lips slightly, revealing 2 beautiful dimples. A lot bolder. Bai Zi glanced at the girl's small movements with a funny glance. ... This little action, at the scene, I am afraid that except for Xie Mi in her arms, it is all clear at a glance. G. Do you know that your own invisible society is dead, girl? Then Giratina, see you. After a polite sentence, Bai Zi took Lai Kongzai and Necrozma back to the Pokeball, grabbed Xiao Huang's waist directly, and hugged her to Kang Zhang's back with her short exclamations, and followed suit. The leap. Let's go back. Putting his palm on Xiao Huang's flat but surprisingly flexible lower abdomen, Bai Zi reached out and patted the punitive Hoopa who was playing the game of, look at me, look at you, with Xie Mi in Xiao Huang's arms. Look at me. The little guy deliberately glanced at Xie Mi, patted his little chest, stretched out his hand, and moved towards the golden ring that floated in front of him. Hoopa, low. Immediately. The light wheel expands, and the blue and white space curtain within the ring rises. Kang Shang jumped immediately, and went straight into the light wheel, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. And the golden ring that had recovered to its true state also disappeared into the void. No, it's better to never see you again. Until this time, Giratina's belated response was restoring the calm, inverted world. The dragon's body twists and turns like a cockroach. Giratina, who was about to leave this place. Ringing. Out of the corner of his eyes, he unconsciously swept in the direction of the Fengaling stone wall. Next second. Dark. However, a phantom full of sacredness came into view, making Giratina's figure froze suddenly. -12. ... Begging. 582. Let's die, Zygarde. Scene changed, and in the next second, Bai Zi and the others who passed through the first floor of the water curtain, returned to the top of the building in the desert city. Of Hoopa's light wheel is enough to cover the entire elf world, except for those dimensional space nodes that are very obvious in its eyes. The movement on the plane requires sitting target for precise positioning. Therefore, is obviously unrealistic to want to return directly from the inverted world to the true new town. As for the desert city, not to mention that Hoopa has opened a light wheel several times here, everything it has visited is equivalent to leaving a space beacon under the power and energy of the dimension. If you want to come back, it's easy. Tread tilde. Kang Shang stepped lightly on all fours, and at the moment when it landed, the circle of light wheels behind him quickly shrank, and it was placed on the corner of punishing Hoopa's chair again. It's amazing. Xiao Huang opened his 453 eyes slightly, and Xie Mi in his arms couldn't help but cast his eyes on the pair of golden rings hanging on the corner of Hoopa's chair. This time, the vanity of punishing Hoopa was immediately satisfied. Hee, have you been scared? It was really startling. Xiao Huang's eyes were curved, and he echoed his face. The smugness on Hoopa's face was even more hidden. What a fool. Looking at Hoopa, who was coaxed by Xiao Huang after a few words, Bai Zi took out the calling bell from his bosom while he was amused. Shake lightly. Jingle bell 1. The rattling bell was crisp and sweet, carrying a peculiar chanting wave towards the wind-speed dog in the distance. Take back the calling bell. As soon as he looked up, he saw Xiao Huang, Xie Mi in his arms, and punishing Hoopa all looking at him with a puzzled look. Bai Zi smiled and was about to explain out loud. Lu Wu tilde. Accompanied by a soft moan, the Doran Baruto triangle is the head emerging from the shadow of Shirazawa's feet. Mea tilde. From the launch port on the top of the head, the two dragon-like Messiah-like companions climbed out of it, looked at them for a while, and suddenly silently entered the void. Immediately after. It was at the corner of the building fence that was only 3 or 5 meters away from Baizi's side. Shaped like an arrow, it suddenly stabbed the wall on the side of the fence. PFF. In the short muffled sound, an elf with a whole body light green, shaped like a planarian, and with a blue hexagonal mark on the center of the abdomen, appeared from the air with rolled eyes. It turned out to be Zygarde. Looking at the light green planarian that was carried over from midair by the two dragon Messiah companions of Doran Baruto, Baizi raised his eyebrows slightly. Keyguard. Or more precisely, Zygarde Core. Zygarde, 8, 5, 6, 1, 0, 9, 7, 8, 2, Ling, Long, as a very rare or unique group in the wizard world aggregate elves. Its entirety is made up of countless cells-like individuals. Mainly, divided into core and cell, 2 parts. Zygarde's cells do not have any will or thinking process, let alone use any tricks, and the core is a brain similar to cellular organization, which surpasses other cells. Exist. Zygarde has a total of 2 cores, namely Z1 with a red hexagonal imprint in the belly, and Z2 with a blue imprint in the belly. There is no subordinate relationship between the cores, and they can all change their shape by recruiting other cells. A single core can only show 10% Doberman form and 50% serpent form. Complete Gundam form. It takes 2 core forces to converge and manifest. Moreover, they can communicate with each other remotely through telepathy, and can also use the perspective of cells to observe other places than themselves. Speak up. Zygardes, cells, are almost all over the continent of Carlos. It can be said that the entire Carlos, at least more than 70% of the wild, are almost all in the ecosystem of Zygarde. Under the sight of the traditional supervisor. Therefore, Desert City, where such a fierce battle broke out, was targeted by the opponent, and it was reasonable. While thinking in his heart, a streamer that no one could see in Baizi's eyes flashed. Next second. The Zygarde core cell Z2, which is a simple attribute panel, suddenly appeared in Baizi's eyes one by one. Race. Zygarde core cell Z2. Attribute. None. Feature. Cluster deformation. Level. Infancy level 1, 0/100. Potential. Level 1 God incomplete. Complete body is the limit of God's domain. HP. 5216, hidden vitality, attack, 0, defense, 0, special attack. Exclusive skill, blocking. Common skills, none. Law comprehension, ground system 99%. Open black lens bracket authority, order close black lens bracket. 0, special defense, 0, speed, 5. Status, slightly injured. Introduction. One of the cores of Zygarde, the god of order, has the ability to read words and group deformation, and can restore physical strength by absorbing sunlight. Unlike other elves or legends with special forms, Zygarde's power is completely thinned out, and there is no manifestation of other powers hidden in the body. But to be so weak is indeed the only thing that has happened in Baizi's life. It's no wonder that even a little girl less than 10 years old like Eulegia can't escape the magic claws. Of course. There is also the reason that the Lolicon core Z1 was domesticated. Heart slander. But Baizi obviously doesn't really look down on this Zygarde's core cell, not to mention that its body has the power to suppress the 2 legends in the same region, Xerneas and Yveltal. The top-level domain of the gods. The concealment ability that even Kang Xiang was concealed was quite astonishing. If not for Doran Baruto. I'm afraid Baizi and the others won't be able to detect this guy's peeping at all. Thinking. Baizi, who had nothing to do with leisure, was about to have a candid and frank talk with Zygarde. Gollum. Z2 that was sent to Baizi didn't know that the string of brain 4.3 was broken, and he even tried to pass the level cutely, and made a grunting sound at Baizi like a cute one. The only left eye with pupils blinked and blinked, and the little tail at the end swayed happily, full of innocent and cute expressions. By Z. Core Z2. Just when the Core Z2 felt something was wrong, By Z spoke again. Then what? I know you, Zygarde. The air fell into a brief silence. Immediately after. Visible to the naked eye. Zygarde Z2 gradually turned gray, and his eyes also lost their spirits a little. 583. In a word, let Zygarde take the initiative to follow. Just when By Z was thinking about whether to say something to ease the atmosphere, Zygarde suddenly changed his expression, and changed the topic in a tone that could maintain his dignity as much as possible. Quote, Human, I hope you can always maintain your original heart while entrusting the power of God, and don't be blinded by too powerful power. Quote, Why don't you put it aside to play sermons with me and change the subject? By Z blinked. Looking at the other party's earnest and even a pleading look in his eyes, he couldn't help but murmur in his heart. However, By Z was only a little bad, and he wasn't really ready to kill Zygarde's Z2 core completely. After all, the other party is also the official god of the peak of the gods. This face, how much still have to give a little? Only. Just when By Z nodded and was about to follow Zygarde's words. Gratefully glanced at By Z, and the Zygarde Z2 core, who was relieved, added another question. Quote, By the way, what about the legend of hetero-colored Rayquaza and Alora who assisted you in the battle before? Did you leave? You know Necrozma. Hearing this, By Z didn't answer directly, but asked back with a strange expression on his face. Zygarde Z2 doesn't seem to sense the seriousness of the problem yet. Nodding his face as usual, he immediately smiled and said. Quote, It doesn't count as acquaintance, it's just that I also have some cells in the Alola region, so I know a little bit about everything. Then your eyeliner is really long. He was sulking in his heart, and By Z also nodded and replied, Necrozma has not left, he is already my partner. After speaking, he lifted the hem of his clothes and stretched out his hand. He patted the glowing ball on his waist. Yes, is that so? Hearing this, the smile at the core of Zygarde's Z2 also became a little reluctant, with a fluke in his eyes, then. Likong sit. Whether it is Kangshong or Necrozma, the core of Zygarde Z2 is not familiar. Necrozma had only heard its name, and Kangshong had never even seen it. It's a little embarrassing to die in front of them at the most. Anyway, they don't know each other well, so it's a big deal to hide their ears and steal bells, and it can be regarded as never happened. But Lai Kongzai is different, it has really dealt with it. Anyone who has died should know that. Socializing in front of strangers and socializing in front of acquaintances are completely two-level things. Before. It was because he had sensed the absence of Lai Kongzi's breath on By Z's body. It was only when my brain was pumped that I intended to use cuteness and pretend to be stupid to get through the test. Although in his core stance, Zygarde may not even be an opponent of a Carp King, but he is still very confident in his perception and concealment ability. And it is precisely by relying on these two perceptions and concealment that even in the legends of the gods, it can guarantee its own safety without relying on group deformation in most cases. Safety. But what it didn't expect was. The ability to conceal even the top legends was discovered by an ordinary ghost-type elf who was still shallow in the realm of the gods. Certainly. What Zygarde didn't know was that By Z's multi-dragon Baruto was born in the spirit world, and had long been used to and possessed the spirit vision, ability to capture the breath of the other party's soul. Its observation has never been just from the naked eye and breath, but also the perception of the soul. Therefore, Zygarde Z2 Core's self-perfect concealment ability fell into the eyes of Doran Baruto, and naturally there was nothing to hide. Of course, all this Zygarde Z2 Core doesn't understand. Its focus now is on another thing. Since Necrozma has successfully avoided its perception, shouldn't Lai Kongzai also? Although the core of Zygarde Z2 has a fluke in his heart, Unfortunately, the reason why necrozma can block perception is because of the additional work of the exclusive Pokeball, Bright Ball. Use. And the exclusive Pokeball with such utility, Lai Kongzai also has it. There was a trace of pity in Bai Zi's eyes. Even if he can already confirm that the core of Zygarde Z2 should know Lai Kongzai, maybe, the two sides are relatively familiar with each other. And just when Bai Zi was about to send this unfortunate news to the other party at a high speed. Sudden. I don't know if it was intentional or not, Lai Kongzai released the breath that was blocked by the starry sky ball. Double kill. The corner of Bai Zi's mouth twitched, and the sound of a game kill seemed to sound in his ears. And this moment. The Zygarde Z2 core, who scored twice, was finally unable to hold back. Let me go. Let me go. I don't want to stay here anymore. Let me die. Let me go. I don't want to live. The light green planarian wriggled wildly. Screaming, struggling. For a while. I even forgot about the ability to swarm deformation that I have. No way. No way. Really not. Z2 core from the hands of the two dragon messiah companions, and said comfortably. Talking. Bai Zi suddenly remembered the way Ulija teased Xiaomianruan, Z1 core, in the anime, and scratched the blue hexagonal part of the Z2 core abdomen a few times. Ha 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 ha, it's so itchy. Suddenly, 453 feet's uncontrollable laughter came from the mouth of Zygarde Z2 feet's core, who was trembling with anger. Scratched for a while. Z2 core, which gradually calmed down, was weak in Bai Zi's palm. One person and one bug stared at each other for a long time. Finally, the Z2 core said indifferently. Human, let me down. Oh. Bai Zi, who also felt a little embarrassed, immediately put the other party down. The Z2 core silently turned around. Just when it was about to gather the individual cells and use the swarm deformation to leave here. Then what? Bai Zi's kind reminder came again, speaking of which, if you complete the group with another core, won't you share memories with each other? Gah. Z2 feet's core body froze immediately. Moment. It turned around and proposed with a serious look. Human, are you interested in being my partner temporarily, going out together to avoid travel together for a while? Bai Zi blinked, a smile on the corner of his mouth. Of course, I can't ask for it. P.S. Staying up all night is one step closer to sudden death, the next one. 584. The third core, Face Arceus. In the end, Zygarde's Z2 core didn't really make up his mind to follow Bai Zi away. As a legendary leader, Zygarde shoulders the responsibility of guarding and balancing the stability of the natural ecosystem. And, day after day, unrelenting execution. Die in the neighborhood. Anyway, it has also died several times in a row in one day. Societies, clubs, I'm almost used to it. But escaping from his responsibilities because of the death of the society is something that Zygarde cannot do. And honestly, Zygarde is the one with the worst relationship with Bai Zi in all the top legends. Justice, lawfulness, and great sense of responsibility. No matter from which aspect, Zygarde belongs to the absolute lawful side. But this is not very friendly to Bai Zi, a completely personal egoist. Because although he has never been stingy with kindness, he is really aroused by ill will and will not care about it. Sighs. To live freely, this is Bai Zi's wish. And this code of conduct. Even if they form a partner, it is almost predictable that in the future, Zygarde and he will eventually part ways. It would be better to leave a good impression on each other as they are now. When the time comes to need the strength of the other party, Zygarde, who is a friend, should not be stingy to help, right? And in fact, during this brief time together, Zygarde's impression of Bai Zi was not bad. In other words, Bai Zi is still the first person in history to get along so peacefully. Therefore, although it did not choose to follow Bai Zi, it left Bai Zi with a single cell as a carrier to contact him before leaving. and promised to call it at any time. Quote. Then, my friend, I hope you can keep the order and see you again. Words fall. The Z2 core turned into 10% of the Doberman's appearance in the countless green streamers, nodded towards Z, and ran towards the distance. Ziggurat Z2 core 10% form, tripolar god peak, level 99, 5100ths. 3 gods. He stared at Zygarde, who gradually disappeared until he disappeared from sight. Moment. He lowered his head and looked at the sluggish Zygarde cells in his hands one by one. Race. Zygarde cell. Level 0. Introduction. What are you looking at? I'm just an unconscious cell, just remember to bask in the sun every day. Level 0. Yes, once again refresh the lower limit of the legend. But speaking of it, Z held the unconsciously fluctuating, soft gel toy-like Zygarde cell individual in his hand, and a thought suddenly popped up in his heart. Now this little guy is my elf, so is it possible to cultivate it into the core of the third Zygarde? Z3. Well, it's better to hear ZO. Desperately pondering for a while, Z took out a luxurious ball from his waist and gently tapped it on top of the individual cell head in his hand. The red light flashed, and the individual was immediately incorporated into the Pokeball. Think about it in your hand. Dragon. Z said hello, and then gently threw the Pokeball with Zygarde cells in his hand. Ow. Doran Baruto seemed to understand Z's intention in an instant, and he swallowed the elf ball in his mouth. Then he took back the 2 Dragon Messiah companions, and sank into the shadows under Z's feet again. Woo! At this moment, accompanied by a long roar from far to near, under the moonlight, a giant dog of divine steed, surrounded by lit lights, rushed towards here. On its back, a slender figure is half prone, with the ups and downs of running. Wind speed dog. Z raised his head with a smile on his face. And just when the wind speed dog supported the sleepy Catalia and ran to Z in a few jumps in succession. All of a sudden, Z only felt that the scene in front of him changed in an instant. The devastated and dilapidated city turned into a vast universe of stars in the blink of an eye. In this deep and boundless void, an immeasurable stalwart figure stands in the sea of boundary. Full body gold and white rendering. It looks like a centaur and a unicorn, with high hair on the temples from the head, gray face and red and green pupils, 4 red gold feet, and a golden cross-shaped wheel in the middle of the waist. The breath is indifferent and sacred, and a unique noble divine will arises spontaneously. And all around it, countless spheres shining bright or dark in various colors, accompanied by 19 mysterious stone slabs that are laid out in a ring, quietly surround. This is Arceus. Gudong tilde. Z never imagined that he would be so confused in this endless void where he would meet the creator god of the elf world, the multi-level ceiling. Shocked. However, Z quickly adjusted his mood. But just as he was about to speak, buzz. The 19 stone slabs lined up around Arceus' waist suddenly bloomed. In an instant, countless sacred proverbs emerged from Z's mind one by one. Before the birth of the universe, it was the only one who breathed alone, magic slate. The place where the universe was born is also the place where it originated, jade bug slate. When the universe was born, its fragments were turned into slate of the earth. It's watching Pokemon and people in all the universes, Dooley How, legendary slate. This is a creation inscription. Z covered his head, and he could feel that these inscriptions seemed to possess some kind of magical power, but now he has no clue at all, nor can he perceive Mingwu. And just as he endured the pain in his brain, in the afterglow, Monster Slate, lined up with the 18th inscription suddenly burst out with dim light, escaping from Arceus's side. Subsequently, the dim light escaped from the stone slab. The slate disappeared into the void. The dim light turned into a dazzling purple ghost face mark, which was directly printed on Z's left arm. Hi tilde. Suddenly, the severe pain caused Baizi to wake up suddenly. Strong. 585. The Slate of Creation, The Trial of Arceus. Outside world. Huh. Baizi groaned without warning, which immediately attracted the attention of Xiaohuang and Kang Shang. Are you all right, brother Baizi? Baizi. Guru tilde. Xiaohuang, who was sitting in front of him, leaned over slightly, his eyes worried. Kang Shang immediately spread his perception out, and in the shadows under his feet, Machado and Duolong Baruto also followed one after another. Emerge. Wu tilde. Wind speed dog was even more, magical speed, and a circle of fire was laid between the steps, and he looked over with a worried expression. I'm fine. Baizi, who pressed his eyebrows and reopened his eyes, waved his hand, and immediately after a little relief, he pulled the cuff of his left wrist away. At this moment, the stinging pain like an iron brand has gradually subsided, accompanied by an emerging coolness. A coin-sized, very conspicuous lilac ghost face mark appeared on his wrist. It's not an illusion. Baizi murmured in an almost imperceptible volume. And at the same time, as Baizi stroked the mark with his thumb, a message suddenly entered his mind. After a brief trance, Baizi's pupils flashed a glimpse. This thing is the mark left by the ghost type, yokai slate, among the 19 creation slates of Arceus 453. Rely on this thing. He can enter a special parallel time and space, and after completing the trial of Arceus, he finds the monster slate that also enters that time and space. He will be able to return to the original time and space again, and gain access to the monster slate. The trial of Arceus. Ghost face, one that gradually disappeared on his wrist. For some reason, Baizi always felt that he was actually playing the role of a toolman. It may not be him who is concerned by Arceus. Look down. After looking at the ignorant Doran Baruto, Baizi withdrew his gaze and pulled down his cuffs again. Although this trial of Arceus came a little suddenly, but it is impossible for Baizi to give up. After all, the reward for completing the trial is too generous. Monster Slate. This is the ceiling of the elf world, and it has been confirmed as one of the core strengths of Arceus at multiple levels, and one of the creation slates containing the power of ghosts CFED. Its inscription is ... Its violent clone was given to the back of the world. No doubt. This is exactly the slate that Arceus used to create the Pluto dragon Giratina. Even according to the huge gap between the two sides, it is very likely that the slate that created Giratina was just a fragment carried by the clone of Arceus. Projection, or imitations. But no matter. As one of the creation slates owned by the multi-level creation god Arceus, the monster slates can be called the most priceless treasures in the elf world. With the opportunity in front of him, it is impossible for Baizi to hold back because of a little unknown. Not to mention, with the gap between him and Arceus, he really has nothing to do with himself, and he has no power to fight back. Therefore, this so-called trial is likely to be a chance given to him by Arceus, or Duran Baruto. And this so-called trial ground. Seriously. It always gives Baizi a strong sense of sight of the game plot of Legend Arceus. So, there's no need to go in such a big circle. The place where the trial is located, shouldn't it be the Shikui area in the time of God Augu, the background in the game? The more he thought about it, the more likely Baizi's expression became strange. Speak up. Baizi has very limited knowledge of the area. I only generally know a few pieces of information about Arceus and the new Zoro Hashikui form that have been circulated in advance. Others, things like the plot. Because he has never played the game, he is basically in a state of ignorance. However, this unknown has aroused Baizi's desire to explore. As a qualified trainer, exploration, especially the unknown exploration, is more exciting and fascinating, isn't it? Baizi couldn't even wait. Whether it's the Genesis slate or this unknown expedition. But before that, Some things he still needs to understand thoroughly. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Bai Zi, who quickly regained his expression, turned his attention to Catalia, who was half squinting at him, like a sleepy cat. Reach out. The burning white thought force immediately picked up the big blonde cat from the wind speed dog's back and pulled it in. He raised his fingers and nodded towards the other party's smooth forehead. But the hand is only halfway out. Then Catalia raised her hand softly and grabbed it, and muttered loudly. Don't untie it for me. I feel so good now. You untie it for me, just untie the seal of the pokeball. Bai Zi blinked, glanced at the softness on the back of his hand, and shrugged. It's up to you. Anyway, with your spiritual power, you can break through this mental blockade that I set up by yourself, for 10 days and a half months at most. Think about it. After signaling the wind speed dog to remove the authority mark on the Catalia Pokeball, and fiddling with the Pokemon watch twice, he raised his head and said. Quote, just in time, I'm going to Hujong, so I'll let you take a ride. Talking. Regardless of whether Catalia agrees or not, after taking Kangshong and Fengsu back into the Pokeball and releasing the steel-armored crow. Directly with one hand, he took her and Xiao Huang's waists, and floated into the crown of the steel-armored crow. Wow! The steel-armored crow made a high-pitched sound, the giant wings vibrated, and it went straight into the sky in the rolling waves, heading towards the nearest Yaoshang city. After a long trip, it was not the same emergency as before, so Bai Zi naturally chose the most comfortable way to travel. Although Yaoshang city is not big, there is still a small airport in the city, and there will be a flight to Hujong at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's almost 3 or 4 in the morning now. After booking the ticket, it's time to go to the rest room at the airport to take a nap and leave tomorrow morning. 586. Since I'm not following the rules, don't blame me for flipping the table. On the way. By the way, Xiao Huang, why did you run to Shanao so honestly, and also sent all the main force in your hands back to the Damu Research Institute? Yifeng slowly, Bai Zi's palm covering the girl's belly seemed to be unintentional. He moved slightly and asked in a warm voice. He had some doubts about this before. Although Xiao Huang is simple, she is not stupid, and the sharpness given by the power of vibrant makes it easy for her to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be so easy to be deceived. Because, with his body tense, Xiao Huang, who nibbled his teeth, turned even more crimson on his face. He nodded and lowered his eyebrows in a low voice, because the other party sent a message using your communication number, Brother Bai Zi, so. Xiao Huang's head bowed lower and lower, and his hands were twisted together. So I didn't think about it that much at the time. And he also called me, Yellow. Thinking of this, the girl's face turned even redder. She glanced shyly at the boy beside her, and quickly took it back, for fear that the other party would ask about the inside. The content. Luckily, Bai Zi didn't bother too much about the content, instead he tapped the girl's forehead with a bit of laughter. Quote, so you don't hesitate to believe it. Why don't you make a phone call to confirm? Xiao Huang shrank his head and did not speak. You tilde. Bai Zi couldn't help but shook his head and warned. Eat a cut, grow a wiser, remember, in the future, you should think twice before you act. Also, no matter where you go or do anything, you must bring at least 2 or 3 main force with you, understand? Tilde. Xiao Huang suddenly nodded his head with a good-natured expression. Seeing this, Bai Zi didn't say anything more. He was well aware of the girl's longing and attachment to him. Since he had warned him, this little girl would definitely execute it meticulously. But think about it. He still decided to find an opportunity to help Xiao Huang find an excellent ghost-type elf. As a personal protection elf, there is nothing more suitable than the ghost type. Gengar is a good choice, or, also get a Doran Baruto for Xiao Huang. The next day, early in the morning. 6:30. On the sofa in the independent rest room, Bai Zi, who woke up on time under the reminder of the biological clock, opened his eyes and felt the soft restraint on his body. He bowed his head. Xiao Huang and Catalia were leaning on his sides. Xiao Huang was okay, just hugged his left arm and leaned on his shoulder. And Catalia's sleeping position is unexpectedly indecent. Half of her body has slipped onto the wool pad under the sofa. How did he get under the bend of his legs, drooling, and he was sleeping soundly? Shaking his head amusingly. First, he straightened Xiao Huang's head, then carefully pulled out his left arm, and pulled the blanket over her body towards her. Then, with a hook of the finger, the burning white thought power rose, throwing Catalia back to the sofa, and another blanket flew straight up and placed it on the other party's body. Then, Baizi got up and stretched. He walked out of the lounge, rubbed the wind speed dog who was lying vigil in front of the door, went straight to the communication room of the compartment, and dialed the video phone of the Oki Research Institute. 2 beeps, the call was quickly connected, and Dr. Damu also appeared on the screen. You finally called me, Xiao Baizi. Looking at Baizi who appeared on the screen, Dr. Damu took the lead and asked, how is it? Xiao Huang should be all right. Well, safe and sound. Baizi nodded, looked at Dr. Damu, who was relieved, and said with a smile, by the way, please send Dr. Damu's elves over here. Also, remember to tell Serena to let her stay in Junshin town with peace of mind. When I finish some follow-up matters, I will go back to find her to continue the journey. Good. Dr. Damu nodded, and immediately asked slightly hesitantly, Xiao Baiz, have you thought about how to deal with this matter? If there is any inconvenience, I still have a little energy in Guandu and can help you. No need. Baizi shook his head and interrupted. Dr. Damu, I am going to solve this matter in my own way. Your method? Yes. Ask for flowers. A smile suddenly appeared on Baizi's face, and he said, since some people like to break the rules, then I will follow their routine. Playing tricks with me, then don't blame me for flipping the table. This time, I'll just lift it up. Seeing Baizi's smile, Dr. Damu suddenly felt a chill in his vest, but he did not advise him. After a second of silence for those guys, he chatted a few more words, and then moved Xiao Huang's the Pokeball teleported in turn. Hang up the phone. Putting away Xiao Huang's 9 Pokeballs, Baizi got up and left the communication room. However, when he reached the door, he turned around and did not head towards the lounge. Instead, he came to the lobby and glanced casually at the slightly empty and silent waiting room. He waved to a staff member in an airport uniform not far away. Visible to the naked eye. The young man with the headset trembled all over, and then pointed to himself with some hesitation. Seeing Baizi nod, he trotted over with a pale face. This passenger, may I ask you? Okay. Baizi interrupted with a wave of his hand. I booked a flight to Hejiang Shuanglong City. Since you guys are doing it so grandly, let's just go ahead and arrange for us to board the plane as soon as possible. This. The uniformed youth's expression changed suddenly, but then, a capable female voice came from his headset, promise him. Quote. Of course there is no problem. The uniformed youth choked, and immediately said to Baizi. That's fine. Baizi glanced at a certain direction on the top floor unintentionally, laughed lightly, turned and walked towards the independent lounge. Actually, he found out last night when he booked a ticket and arrived at Yaoshang Airport. Throughout the waiting hall, including passengers and airport staff, they are all composed of capable and elite trainers. Everyone is carefully playing large-scale role-playing games with them. Obviously, this is the response of the Carlos Union. And such a move is more interesting than he expected. Begging _ 587. The Land of Dragons, Sakagi. Treatment of the top VIP. Not only did they enjoy a sumptuous breakfast, but they also boarded a luxury special plane with only the 3 of them and flew to the Hejiang area. And just after the special plane called by Baizi and others took off. Airport, Command room. A lady Junsha in a blue and white uniform with curly ponytail hair picked up the communicator. Kaluna Champion, Mr. Baizi and the others have left. Yes. I see. Beep _. With the busy tone, after putting away the communicator, Maui Junsha directly grabbed the walkie-talkie at her waist. Okay, close the team. After a while, the entire airport waiting hall suddenly sounded messy footsteps as if it had come to life. And just after this Maui Junsha had just left the waiting hall with the whole team. It didn't take 4, 5, 3 for a long time. Head on. They bumped into a group of union personnel in suits. A middle-aged man with a slightly fat body at the head quickly stepped forward and stopped Junsha Maui. With a bad expression on his face, he asked urgently in an almost questioning tone. Inspector Junsha, what about Baizaran? You're late, Mr. Tianli, they have already left Carlos. Junsha was neither humble nor arrogant. Is it late? The wealthy man named Fulai suddenly laughed angrily, and his saliva almost sprayed on Jun Shajan's face. If you didn't start deploying from the early morning, drain the surrounding water near Yaoshang Airport. No way, prevent us from carrying out our official duties, we will be late. Do you know what kind of opportunities our Carlos Alliance has missed because of your unreasonable interception? As the Alliance's special forces and the West Bank garrison used by you to intercept your colleagues and let go of the culprit who attacked the city. Who gave you the guts? Jun Shajan, your serious dereliction of duty. It is a public tool for private use. It is lawless. Ha call. Yu Tianli shouted with a blushing face and a thick neck, gasping for breath. And opposite, Jun Sha, who raised her head slightly to avoid the droplets, wanted to wait for the other party to finish shouting, and then she looked intact and replied in a low voice. Congressman Annie, it's the order of Champion Karuna to arm, and we are also performing official duties. If you have any objection, please call Champion Karuna directly. Close the team. Saying that, she beckoned, and she was about to go directly over Yu Tianli and the others and walked out of the airport. The blue veins on Fu Lai's forehead were violent, and he was in a high position. He had never been treated like this for a while, and his mind was burned by anger. He couldn't help but reach out to Jun Sha, who was walking to his side. Catch! But next second. Swish swish one by one. The successive flashes lit up, feeling the coldness from the framed body and neck. Yi Lai suddenly woke up. Yu Guang crossed carefully. I saw that everyone, including myself, was surrounded by a group of Koga ninja frogs that suddenly appeared. Their arms were captured, and 2 water shurikens were staggered in front of their necks. Gudong. Yu. Volley was left in a cold sweat. Immediately after, Jun Shajan came with an obvious sarcastic tone. Is Mr. Wulai planning to attack the police? You have to be clear that our special forces have special powers to deal with when they perform tasks. You, what are you doing? Wu Liser said, I am a coalition member. You, if you. So what? It's all a misunderstanding. Oh tilde. Jun Sha sneered and waved again, motioning to let them go. By the way, Mr. Yi Lai, before you want to do something stupid next time, can you please remove this layer of skin from your body first? Otherwise, others will think that our Carlos Alliance is full of sacks like you. As a colleague, I am very embarrassed, After speaking, he led the team directly and left the airport without looking back. All that was left was Annie and the others, whose faces were pale for a while. After having the same sumptuous lunch on the plane, at 1:30 in the afternoon, Baizi and his group arrived at the airport in Shuanglong City. Get out from Shuanglong Airport. They first went to the Elf Center in Shuanglong City and settled Catalia. Subsequently, Baizi took Xiaohuang and went straight to the Land of Dragons, where Alice marked the route. 3:10 in the afternoon. After finally touching the entrance of Dragon Township, Baizi and the two passed through a long and narrow mountain forest, and in front of the clear hilly area, scattered villages crisscrossed each other. And Alice, who was looking forward to it at the intersection, greeted her immediately. Little Yellow. Completely ignoring Bai Zi, Alice rushed to hug Xiaohuang, who jumped off the back of the wind-speed dog, her braided head rubbed against Xiaohuang's cheek desperately, her dark face flushed. Suspicious blush. Bai Zi's brows jumped when he looked at the idiot look that he didn't intend to show. Alice. Xiaohuang didn't seem to notice this, and hugged him with his backhand, patting Alice on the back as if coaxing a child. After being tired for a while, Alice released her hand under Xiaohuang's persuasion, followed Xiaohuang's arm around her and came to Bai Zi together. Thank you. Alice gave Bai Zi a 90-degree bow regardless, and then issued an invitation as if nothing happened. Bai Zi, Xiaohuang, do you want to visit our village? The Land of Dragons. Bai Zi stared at the seemingly unremarkable small village under the ramp, the Land of Dragons, this sacred place of the dragon system, which is as famous as the Dragon Cave of the Yulong family in Chengdu. He was naturally interested. But now is not the time. I won't. He shook his head and said, if possible, I hope to let Xiaohuang stay in the Land of Dragons for a while, and I'll pick her up when I'm done. Okay, Ellie. Silk. Of course I'm fine, Alice answered decisively without any hesitation. Xiaohuang. Bai Zi looked at Xiaohuang again. I can do it too. Although he was reluctant to part with each other in less than a day, Xiaohuang never knew how to reject Bai Zi. Good. Bai Zi rubbed the little head of the girl who looked lost in 4.3. Subsequently. Wait for me to come back. In Alice's tasteful expression, she squeezed Xiaohuang's delicate face again, and then she patted the wind-speed dog and walked in the direction of the road. At the speed of the wind-speed dog, under the familiarity of the road, he quickly ran out of the Land of the Dragon Township. Just when Bai Zi was about to take back the wind-speed dog and transfer to Lai Kongxi. Jingle bell. The caller's bell suddenly rang. Bai Zi looked slightly surprised at the unmarked video call on the elf bracelet, raised his eyebrows slightly, and chose to open it. A virtual light curtain rises. But next second, an unexpected face appeared on the screen. Yichi Sakagi. 588. Hunter Guild, please complete order. Bai Zi never imagined that the leader of the Rockets, who had almost disappeared, would contact him at such a time. Moreover, in a way that is very easy to reveal oneself like a video call. In his heart, Bai Zi kept his head down and spoke first. I don't know what the dignified leader of the Rockets is. What's the point of contacting an ordinary trainer like me? Ordinary trainer. Your Excellency, Bai Zi is joking. If you are an ordinary trainer who masters the power of God, then we are probably not even qualified to be called a trainer. Sakagi shook his head. As for the leader of the Rockets, I have disbanded the Rockets. Now, it's just an ordinary trainer. Well, the wanted one. Saying that, Sakagi spread out his hands with a smile, leaning back slightly on the back of the chair, revealing a very technical layout scene behind him. Is the cabin? 25. Bai Zi's eyes flashed, and then he said with a chuckle, the dignified Sakagi, even if the Rockets are gone, it's just one more useful tool missing, isn't it? Not to mention, with Sakagi's influence and control over the Rockets, it's just a matter of raising his arms to regroup. It was the reason why he disbanded Team Rocket. Bai Zi, who had some guesses in his heart, focused his attention on Sakagi's face again. And a playful smile suddenly appeared on his face. Should I also congratulate that Chief Sakagi has found his long-lost child? Sakagi's expression froze for a moment, but he quickly restrained his expression, with a search in his eyes. Your Excellency, Bai Zi's source of information is really curious. It's just a good memory. Bai Zi shrugged, as if answering a question about money. Subsequently, without waiting for Sakagi to continue, he went straight to the topic and said, okay, let's stop playing the game, let's get straight to the point. Sakagi, what's the matter with you looking for me? Turn fighters into jade and silk. Sakagi said sternly. What do you mean? Bai Zi frowned slightly. Subsequently, He saw the picture on the screen move a few meters to the left, revealing a strict acquaintance, bound by a restraint belt. Hunter J. Baizi's eyes narrowed slightly. And Sakaji's voice also followed. This woman is one of the new 4 generals that I pulled out of Joban prison a few months ago as a supplement to the rockets. However, this woman doesn't seem to know how to follow the rules at all. During the period I ordered to hide, she even privately reconnected with the group of hyenas in the Hunter Guild and participated in the acupuncture. A siege mission against your friend Xiao Huang. Recently, it seems that the underground world has started to clean up the encirclement and suppression personnel, so this woman ran back again. However, I dare not keep such a time bomb. Simply, I captured it, and regarded it as a small gift that you and I reacquainted with, and gave it to Your Excellency Baizi. I think she should have some effect on Your Excellency. As Sakaji's words fell, Hunter J, whose mouth was blocked in the video, looked more and more frightened, and the tightly bound body under the restraint belt also twisted like a green caterpillar. Stand up. Location. Baizi stared deeply at Hunter J's terrified expression, and said after a long time. Sakagi smiled suddenly. There is no need for Your Excellency Baizi to run around in person. Send me a location, and I will deliver her in person. Baizi didn't do much. After sending the coordinate information to Sakagi, he hung up the phone directly. His eyes were dazed, and he just sat upright on the wind-speed dog's broad cotton back and waited. And Sakagi didn't let Baizi wait for a long time. In just over half an hour, Baizi's mental perception noticed that a galloping object was approaching rapidly. Coax. Soon, along with the humming of the air current, a behemoth that was invisible, with a distance of nearly 100 meters, slowly landed on the open space not far from Baizi. As the stealth position was withdrawn, the cabin where the pitch-black triangular aircraft was being lowered fell. Sakagi, still in a suit, stepped down. And behind him, a tall, red-haired woman followed behind with Hunter J, who looked like a chick. Athena. Baizi looked slightly surprised. Good. This tall, red-haired woman was Athena, one of the 4 generals of the rockets who was carried in the hands of Shinado, who was still Chilean at the time, in the Battle of the Golden City. Through the pure eyes of the other party, Baizi could easily perceive the ignorant mental fluctuations of this Athena, like a child. Baizi didn't expect that Sakagi would fish out and cure this woman who can be said to be completely abolished. At least, she has regained consciousness. But after taking a look, Baizi looked away. The real Athena can be said to have been killed in terms of personality, but this one is just a newborn with the appearance of the other party. There's no need to pay attention. However, Sakagi can do this for a subordinate who can be said to be worthless, and it is no wonder that the rockets almost gave up on him. This is the man you want. Hunter J from Athena. Sakagi simply pushed the opponent forward. Immediately, an interesting Hunter J, who was withdrawn, staggered towards Baizi. But it didn't take a few steps. Hunter J felt an invisible force pulling her entire body forward. In the blink of an eye, she felt her neck fall into an iron hoop-like palm. Look at me. With an inexplicably induced scream, Hunter J raised his head blankly and set his eyes on Baizi's blue eyes. Next second, substantial spiritual power followed Baizi's slightly glowing pupils, and rushed into Hunter J's mind unscrupulously. Suddenly, Hunter J's eyes widened, his whole body twitched violently like an electric shock, and he couldn't help but let out bursts of shrill screams, which made people shudder. Soon the screams and convulsions subsided. Baizi's palm exerted a little force. Click tilde. Crisp sound. J, whose head had completely lost its support, Baizi casually threw it to the ground. Hunter Guild. Eyes, slightly cold. 589. Old things, don't give face. The Hunter Guild, a semi-loose gray organization of this world nature. The real rise is only half a century. And before that, The so-called hunter organization is nothing more than a gathering place for a group of bereaved dogs in the gray area to keep warm. Until now, the president of the Hunter Guild, the only S-rank hunter, proficient in evil, and the former champion of the Carlos region, who was once called the Duke Demon, appeared, Virgil Shaw. For some reason, Virgil, who had only been the champion of Carlos for a year, rebelled brazenly, and killed the 4 kings of the fire system of Carlos at the time, as well as an incumbent Carlos alliance. After the branch president, he disappeared. 7 years later, Virgil officially entered the stage of the elf world with the reborn Hunter Guild, 12 special A-level hunters with the lowest single-handed king level, and a group of hyenas gathered together. Make waves in Carlos. Hunter riot, that swept the entire Carlos. Let everyone see the power of the Hunter Guild, and the madness of this man. Same. After this battle, the original upward momentum was extremely fierce, and the comprehensive strength even the headquarters of the Guandu Alliance, which had not been divided at the time, had to be stabilized. The Ross Alliance almost collapsed because of this. Although it has gradually recovered in recent years, it seems to have completely lost the momentum of the previous rise. Virgil can be said to have cut off the possibility of Carlos by himself. Achieved dominance. But the nascent Hunter Guild also didn't get it right. Large number of A-level and B-level core hunters have lost half of their lives, and only 3 of the 12 special A-level hunters are left. Even Virgil himself and the 3 main players including the initial partner are also in this battle. Lost life. Hunter riot, event that shocked the entire elf world, came to an end. The Hunter Guild was also broken into pieces and entered a period of dormancy. Thereafter, relying on the vicious name of this campaign, the Hunters Guild frantically accepted the Desperados. Instead of being wiped out in the subsequent joint operations of the alliances, it was like a snowball. It accumulated more and more, and finally formed the scale it is today. However, as the alliance became stronger and stronger, the Hunter Guild gradually changed from a violent group to a gray organization that took all black and white. Nowadays, Virgil, who is more than 90 years old, basically no longer asks about the Hunter Guild, but entrusts the Hunter Guild to his subordinates. I don't know how many batches of 3 vice guilds have been replaced. Managed separately. And one of the leaders in charge of recruiting elite hunters to participate in the siege of Shaohuang this time is one of the 3 vice-chairmen of the Hunter Guild, and he and Hunter J belong to the same 4D special A-level hunter. The most mysterious one, Hunter Z. According to Hunter J's memory, Hunter Z wore a faceless mask all the year round, and even spoke in a hoarse mechanical voice. It can be said, a complete mystic. The only 2 things that can be determined are the gender of the opponent, male, and the elf attribute that the opponent is good at, ghost. But, according to Hunter J's own guess, Hunter Z's identity, not to mention the other 2 vice presidents, Virgil, the president of the Hunter Guild, should know. Because if you want to officially become the vice president of the Hunter Guild, you must go to a secret location alone to complete an unknown test before you can get the order from the President Virgil. Appointment letter. Clap clap tilde. In the middle of his thoughts, applause suddenly sounded. Baizi raised his head, and saw Sakagi stroking his palms and sighed uncontrollably. Such a neat and tidy method of killing, Your Excellency Baizi. It really doesn't look like a qualified alliance trainer. Tilde. Why not? Let the tiger return to the mountain and wait for her to find a chance to bite me again. Baizi restrained his thoughts, and without raising his head, he took out a wet tissue from his backpack and carefully wiped his right hand before throwing it away. Coax, _. The invisible, hot wind, swept across, steaming the wet paper towels that fell in the air to dry and whitening, and then completely ignited, turning into little sparks, falling on Hunter J's body. Immediately, the lingering fire suddenly burst into flames, turning into a pillar of lift-off to illuminate the surrounding area. Quote exclamation mark. N. Seeing this, Sakaji's pupils could not stop tightening. At this moment, the sudden fire column had dissipated in the blink of an eye, and even took Hunter J's body, but the grass under her the ground is only slightly browned. As the top trainer, Sakagi couldn't see where the wind speed dog was in front of him, whether it was the control of the fire element or the retraction and release of the energy level. It was the ultimate. Really wonderful fire attribute manipulation skills. Sakagi complimented and praised, then looked at Baizi and asked, Your Excellency Baizi, I don't know if you are satisfied with my present. Are you satisfied? To be honest, if Sakagi hadn't sent this key clue, he might still be in the process of identifying and searching for the identity of the characters in the pictures extracted from Alice's mind before investigating one by one. Middle. It is impossible to identify the first character clue so quickly. This gift did come just in time. Sakagi's gesture of goodwill is also full of sincerity. But, as Lee Good, Sakagi. Baizi raised his head and looked seriously at the leader of the rockets on the opposite side. His tone was solemn, but with a firmness that could not be changed. Although it is a bit shameful to say this, is it true? Turning battles into jade and silk. Before that, I have a question that I have to figure out first. The words fell, and Sakagi, who was still smiling, suddenly sank. P.S. The tablet accidentally fell to the ground last night, and then I was nervous, jumped up and gave it a straight kick. I felt bad all night. I bought a new notebook in the morning and bought a new notebook at noon. I went home and installed the login settings for several hours, and then I started to code. It is really force majeure. Sorry, 3 strong. 590. Dead Taoist friends don't die. Poor Tao, please complete order. Quote. That's fine, you say. Sakagi spoke slowly. He is not without anger. It's just that since it has been done to such an extent, with Sakagi's castle, naturally, he will not turn his face so easily. After all, he came here to end the conflict between Baizi and Team Rocket. After chasing, even trying and successfully creating the so-called God, he knows better than anyone what it means to be a trainer who controls a top legend. That is, God power. It is a mobile natural disaster unmatched by mortals. It is precisely because he clearly understands this that Sakagi will capture and deliver it in person at the first time after confirming the relevant information. Throwing away this may bring harm to himself. Hot potato. Second, it is intentional friendship. After 100 miles and a half 90, he naturally couldn't easily give up halfway. Heroic nature. Seeing that Sakagi quickly restrained his anger, and agreed without changing his face, Baizi couldn't help sighing in his heart, and immediately said, the place in Yujian Mountain is actually underground. Do you know what the test base is doing? Mountain Moon. Sakagi was stunned for a moment, then looked at Baizi with a strange expression. You destroyed the experimental base at Yujanshan 453. It's me. Oh. Baizi nodded in recognition. Good guy. Co-author, you already killed one of my labs before the Golden City. And many more. Since Yujanshan was done by him, then after Yujanshan, Lambda, who was attacked and killed in the Golden City before, shouldn't also. Quote. That rock tunnel between Deadleaf City and Golden City. Me too. Sakagi is really speechless now. What kind of alliance trainer is this? Just like a rocket team Evil Star. Now he really doubts whether Baizi has any grudges with their rockets. Otherwise, what a great hatred for him to destroy his team of rockets in a different place. Quote. To be honest, do you and our rockets have any grudges? Sakagi finally asked, but he couldn't feel relieved if he didn't ask this question. Otherwise, after he answered honestly, he would still be clicked directly. Is he wronged? No. Baizi's mouth twitched. No hatred, then you. Destroy the evil laboratory, rescue the poached elves, rescue the attacked city. Baizi gave examples and said, these are not the training of a Justice League trainer. Obligatory thing. Justice League trainer. Sakagi glanced at the slightly browned grass not far away, and fake and pretend believe it. Then, he began to answer Baizi's previous questions. Quote. The underground laboratory of Mount Tsukiyama was designed to study the effect of moonstones on elves, but then I basically focused my attention on making team rockets. Final weapon. On the other hand, funding and excellent researchers are heavily skewed, and most of the other labs are in a state of stocking. As for whether they did anything out of spec, I don't know. Didn't lie. With Baizi's current mental power, it is not difficult to confirm whether the other party is lying or not with his mental fluctuations. Experiment log. Seized from the Yujanshan experimental base, the other party indeed seemed to be conducting the experiment without any support. However, it's better to conduct experiments in secret. God-making plan, of the rockets, as well as the obtained dream eyelashes, there are very limited, dream factors, and the breaking of Mewtwo is the bad factor, really what an underappreciated lab supervisor can get. Looking back on his memory, Baizi has deep doubts about it. Quote. Then what about the experimental data about Mewtwo? And the genes of Dream and Mewtwo, can anyone CFED these two things out? Impossible. Sakagi answered decisively, but then, he seemed to have just reacted. You know about Mewtwo. Wait, you mean that someone used Mewtwo's experimental data, as well as the dream? And Cheomung's genes were brought out. Is it Yujanshan? Secret research on Mewtwo is being carried out in Tsukiyama's experimental base. Sakaji's tone didn't seem to be fake. In fact, at this moment, Sakaji's chest is almost burning with anger. It seems that your control of the rockets is not so comprehensive, Sakagi. Baizi said meaningfully, let's use a simple method of elimination. First of all, other than you can so who is exposed to these things at the same time. Sakagi gave Baizi a deep look, and said solemnly, the only ones who can get in touch with these at the same time, apart from myself, are only Dr. Fuji and the 4 generals and 3 who take turns guarding this place. Sachi among the beastmen. Sachi. As one of the 3 beastmen of the rocket team that appeared in the special chapter, Sachi's identity and purpose are not simple. She is not only a member of the Galaxy team of the undercover rocket team, but also one and more a mysterious character connected to an evil organization. In the special chapter, she is even the culprit who petrified the owners of a generation of illustrations including red, green, blue, yellow, and collected the vermilion of the original power of Groudon and Kyogre orbs and Indigo orbs. Boss of the Emerald Arc, Armored Man, was already in her hands. It can be said. A character whose purpose remains a mystery to this day. Although there is no basis. But this moment. A strong intuition suddenly arose in Baizi's heart. The culprit behind Lelora's suffering and strength was Sachi. As for the method of verification. Baizi turned his eyes to Sakagi. I think, I already have a choice. Sakagi. Did you rule it out? Sakagi was a little confused by Baizi's ignoring the process and giving the answer directly, but he quickly adjusted his mind and asked, who? Sage. Baizi said the name without any hesitation, and then in Sakaji's frowning brows, he chuckled, if you want to verify whether she is really, the method is actually very simple, just call over and talk. Quote. Sakagi looked at the elf bracelet on the boy's shaking wrist. After a moment of silence, he took out his dedicated communicator. Of course, he could see that Baizi was the mastermind behind the Yujanshan experimental base, and that almost undisguised malice. But at this moment, people are swordsmen, and I am fish. He also has no right to refuse. Not to mention whether it is a dead Taoist friend or a dead poor Taoist. This choice, Sakagi is still well aware of. 591. The 3 Caves of the Cunning Rabbit, who is the strongest Stinger Bee trainer? Quote. Yes, I see, Sakagi-sama. In the island chain of the Orange Islands, in the hillside of an unremarkable and unnamed island, a tall woman in a strange dress replied respectfully, and then put the communicator in her hand that had been hung up on the table in front of him. As she raised her head, under the light of the light, that bloodless pale face was revealed. Slender eyes, dark lips, and a face like a sly fox, it was like something from a horror movie. The vampire came out. With such an unusual appearance and complexion, only those descendants of the ultimate metropolis that Baizi saw in Alola could match. Is the only female, sex in Team Rocket's 3 Beasts, Sachi. Sachi, why did Sakagi contact you again? A short stature, a yellow-haired dwarf with a black beret sat on a high stool with his legs crossed. Obvious sarcasm. Isn't he disbanding the Rockets and going home to take care of the baby? Why, do you regret it again? Chakra is definitely the most dissatisfied one for Sakagi's sudden disbandment of the Rockets. Because the reason why he joined the Rockets was not only because he was convinced by Sakagi's strength, but more importantly, to realize his ambitions. Although he was neither a veteran nor the Rockets the strongest under Nakasakagi. But Chakra regarded himself as the successor of the Rockets' leader after Sakagi. In his opinion, since Sakagi has abandoned the Rockets, it is better to hand the Rockets to himself. The disbandment was announced without a word, causing Team Rocket to split into several small groups in an instant. Like the 3 Beastmen, they were relatively junior, and they were all stationed in this experimental base where birds don't shit. In addition to Sachi himself, because he served as Athena's deputy for a period of time, he inherited part of the elite special team of Athena, one of the 4 generals. Another Oka of the 3 Beasts, including Chakra himself, was assigned to the dozens of Team Rocket members left behind in this base. It can be said that they didn't even catch the soup. Take a few sips. Chakra itself is not some kind of generous guy. Naturally, there is a lot of resentment towards Sakagi. Compared with him, his body is rickety, but he is still more than 2 meters tall. Like a little giant, Oka still maintains respect for Sakagi and retorted, "Don't say that, Chakra, I think the boss of Sakagi must be it has its own considerations." Quote. Chakra rolled his eyes, ignoring the stupid big man with a stubborn mind, but looked at Sachi, waiting for the other party's response. Boss Sakagi said that there is one thing that I need to do in person, so I will set off for a trip to Hujong immediately. Sachi said bluntly without hiding the meaning of Chakra and the two. Something. Is it a secret weapon? Or the power he left for him to make a comeback? Chakra thought. Take me with me, Sachi, in case Mr. Sakagi the big task is arduous, but someone can help you share it. Sachi was silent for a while, then glanced at the handsome dwarf in a speechless voice, and said in a light voice, "As you wish." After saying that, he got up and walked outside. "Oka, I'll ask you to stay here for the time being." Chakra greeted Oka, jumped off the chair, and chased in the direction of Sachi. Quote. Good. Oka scratched his head, and when the two of them were far away, he responded slightly sluggishly. But I don't know if it's an illusion. He always feels. After this parting, I will never see the two of them again. Illusion. The other side. United. As Sakagi put down the communicator in his hand, the two sides fell into a silent silence for a while. Baizi leaned on the furry side of the wind-speed dog, opened the virtual map of the elf bracelet, and began to mark the headquarters of the Hunter Guild according to Hunter J's memory. As the saying goes, there are 3 caves for cunning rabbits, and the Hunter Guild fully applies this. Fangyuan, Hujong, Chengdu. There are 3 headquarters that are completely hidden and require special methods to enter. It's better to say that the branch is basically a semi-public place. Forget about alliances. Even an ordinary trainer can basically find the local Hunter Guild branch as long as he uses snacks to find it. And the opposite is. The location of the Hunter Guild's headquarters is hidden in secret. Even with Hunter J's authority status, one can only roughly understand where the 3 headquarters are located. Ask for flowers. The specific location, I am afraid that apart from the station vice president, only the president himself knows. Because every time I go to the headquarters to replace the props and treasures, they are teleported by the super energy reception envoy in the guild. It's really well organized. Looking at the 3 marked areas, Baizi's eyes flashed brightly, and he immediately closed the map and looked at Sakagi, who was closing his eyes and resting. I have to say that Sakagi's concentration skills are really good. Standing still not far away, his figure is as motionless as a mountain, his eyes are slightly dazed, just like an old monk's concentration. Looking at Sakagi, who seemed to be asleep, Bai Zi, who was slightly standing beside Fengsugo's body, suddenly flashed his eyes. Sakagi, take advantage of the neutral gear, are you interested in killing time with me? Sakagi slowly opened his eyes and looked suspiciously at Bai Zi, who looked at him with a meaningful expression. What do you mean? I mean, come and have a fight with me. My starting elf is also a giant stinger, right? You don't want to be sure, whose stinger is the strongest? Big Sting, who is the strongest Sting Bee trainer? I. Sakagi's expression suddenly froze. The strongest stingray. The strongest stinger bee trainer. As a top trainer who nurtured a unicorn to a champion, Sakagi is known as Earth Sakagi, but his strongest and initial partner has always been in the elf, one of the representative elves of the insect family in a relatively weak position in the world, the giant stinger. It is not only his partner, but also his family, and the strongest trump card he is proud of. The strongest. How long has it been since he was about to forget this goal that he had also pursued and worked hard for? A year, 2 years, or longer. But this middle-aged man who has been trying his best to hide his edge in front of Bai Zi, finally at this moment, shows the demeanor of being the top trainer in the world. That seems to be about to change the world. The reversal of this caused the potential of all innovations in Vientiane to break out suddenly. Begging. 592. Fierce battle, Sakagi's keystone. The universe is reversed, and the Vientiane is innovated. Will contained in Sakagi's potential, that is almost infinitely close to the third stage. Bai Zi's eyes flashed brightly, and he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Originally, he thought that Sakagi's potential would be the type that was full of aggressiveness, or showed ambition and domineering. But did not expect it turned out to be this type. So, Sakagi's dream is not to conquer the world, but to change the world. Thinking about it in my heart, a wave that is not inferior at all, it can even be said that there is not much or not at all, just the force that counteracts Sakagi's force, surges up from Bai Zi's body, silently, from the heart. Levels clashed. In reality, taking two people as the eyes of the yin and yang fish, invisible forces scrambled in the center of the two sides, smashing the air into a ball. But in an instant, 4, 5, 3, the potential of the two sides quickly converged and calmed down as if they had been negotiated. The future is terrifying. At this moment, the unstoppable shock in Sakagi's eyes is almost beyond words. Originally, his knowledge of Bai Zi was just a lucky little monster who was recognized by legends. Although the talents shown are indeed shocking enough, Sakagi is still confident that he must be ahead of the other party in the trainer's team. But now it seems that the little bit of self-confidence in himself is nothing but arrogant. He can do it with ease and use the exact same amount of potential to offset the release of his release. The potential of such a degree is not something he can match. The third phase. Or, the headmaster. So, are you ready to admit defeat? Bai Zi chuckled. Sakagi didn't respond, but silently took a dull-colored luxury ball from his waist, and took out a wristwatch-shaped wristlet from his pocket and put it on the wrist of his left hand. Keystone. Looks like this fight is going to be more fun than I thought. At the same time as the corners of his mouth were raised, Bai Zi also buckled the pokeball loaded with the giant stinger. Next second. Come on, Stingray, X2. Accompanied by the voices of shouting that the two of them blurted out almost at the same time. In the white light that blooms one after another, a streamer of metal and bright yellow phantoms rushed out from the light, pierced the air, and pulled out two long, tail flames, like the tip of a needle facing the wheat on. In the blink of an eye the needle arms meet in midair. Choke, _. The sound of the clash of gold and iron resounded instantly, and the two changed from extreme movement to extreme silence. As if they were frozen, the needle arms and gun tips were connected, and they were stalemate in the air. Relatively sharp. Two red and black electric arcs flashed between the energy levels that were brought to the extreme and collided, and the delayed wind turned into a ring-shaped impact, rushing wildly in all directions. A strong wind blows. Without waiting for the wind speed dog's claws to solve the problem, the shadow at the foot of Baizi suddenly swirled like a tidal wave. The strong wind hit, but it passed through Baizi's body like a phantom, and soon the wind speed dog behind him. The hair rose and the grass rustled. Click tilde. On the opposite side, with a crisp sound, a vigorous figure in the shape of a lioness jumped out. The fierce claws suddenly ripped apart the wind. After landing lightly, the scarlet vertical pupils seemed to swipe at random from the wind speed dog, the big needle bee, and Baizi's feet, and then lazily raise the front paws and lick them. The khaki yellowish fluff, the big black rimmed ears that attract the wind, and the conspicuous red gem on the forehead. This is exactly the eldest cat in his prime, with a moderate size, and he is on par with his peers. There is not much difference, but the ripple-like flow of muscle lines between movements is enough to see what kind of explosive power is hidden under this body. Cat Boss, Champion of the Peak, Level 79, 99 100ths. Level 79, the eldest cat at the top of the championship. Baizi glanced at this sly kitten who seemed to be lazy, but his muscles were tense, and he looked back at him quickly. Sakagi Giant Needlebee, who was in midair and caught in a wrestling with his partner. Sakagi's elves don't seem to be of the unusual type. The same is true for the trump hornbee in front of him. Ordinary body, ordinary posture, and even show no edge, except for the mega stone ribbon around the neck. It is almost indistinguishable from the same kind that can be seen everywhere in the forest. Make any difference? But that's the back to basics body. However, in the tit-for-tat with Baizi, a giant needlebee that surpassed its peers in every aspect, he did not lose out in the slightest. Stab tilde. Finally, the energy level under the handover of the double pin contact has finally accumulated to the extreme. The black-red electric rays seem to overflow uncontrollably. Next second. Boom. Accompanied by the sound of the explosion, the near-zero explosion impact caused the two to fly out at the same time, and the smoke screens were everywhere, and the orders of Baizi and Sakagi also followed. Malicious pursuit. Missing needles. The two shouts were almost indistinguishable. Beer. The long and narrow red worms of the metal hornbee suddenly lit up with a deep and dark color. The invisible mark was linked to the hornbee on the opposite side of Sakagi, and its figure followed the road sign. The traction went straight into the smoke screen, and killed the opponent. And at the same time as the metal giant needlebee sank into the smoke screen, Sakagi's giant needlebee immediately waved its needle arms, and countless energy needles spurted out like a rain screen. Missing needles. The lacing energy flying needles penetrated the smoke screen overwhelmingly. Baizi's metal giant stinger was like a self-inflicted snare. In the blink of an eye, a series of explosions were provoked from the smoke screen, and the re-spreading smoke was illuminated like a fire in the sky. General Cloud. This level of explosion. Baizi frowned slightly, and instantly 4.3 noticed something was wrong. The missile needle does indeed have the effect of an explosion. But with such an explosive amount, and not a single energy needle has been shot out of the smoke screen, it is as if all the missing needles have become cruise missiles. It was as if all the pulls were poured out on his own giant hornbee. What amazing maneuverability! But then, as the needlebee on the opposite side suddenly pulled the needle arm, under the sunlight, countless almost transparent silver wires were suddenly stretched straight, linked to the needle of the needlebee and the gradually escaping smoke screen. At both ends of the black shadow that is entangled in circles. This is 2C. 593. Warm-up is over, please ask. It turned out to be a technique similar to the puppet thread, made of worm silk. Baizi pondered in his heart. And this moment. Destruction of deathlight, that Sakagi giant needlebees began to condense, the smoke screen gradually dissipated in the field, and the black shadow, wrapped around the tough worm silk finally revealed its figure. But that is not the metal hornbee itself, but a lavender energy mold armor in the form of a mega hornbee. This is. Sakaji's pupils tightened immediately, and immediately gave the most correct response command, hold on. But next second, beer. The ear-piercing, insect chirping, sounded abruptly, and the sound waves spread, causing the Sakagi large needlebee, who gave up the destruction of death, and was about to condense the guard shield, suddenly froze. The operation of the energy level in the body also fell into a short stagnation at the same time. And take this opportunity. 25-inch metal hornbee quickly rushed out, carrying the white on attached to the high-speed movement skill along the worm silk, and in the blink of an eye, it rushed to the hornet of Sakagi in front of you. Malicious energy spirals around the right needle arm of the backswing. Next moment. Swing arms like guns, hit the vitals. Malicious pursuit. Poof, underscore. The timing of this attack was too good. It was just stuck in the direction of the old force of the big hornbee, and the new force was not yet born, so that the big hornbee not only failed to achieve effective defense, but could not even evade. Up to. Shooting, is coming. Sakaji's big needlebee hastily only had time to move the spare left arm forward a gear. What time? The acupuncture on the left arm that was attached to the operating energy level in the future was immediately pierced, and the spreading evil energy left a detailed scar on the large needlebee worm body after the acupuncture. At the same time, the short-term strength confrontation also fell into a disadvantage, and the mold armor with the worm silk was directly shot and flew out. Yan back. The large metal needlebee was arrogant, and with a flick of its wings, it chased after it again. Like riding the breeze, under the blessing of the flight factor, the metal hornbee, which has become extremely light, came first, waving needle arms like a sickle, and staggered towards the Sakagi hornbee. Fragile neck and waist joints. One by one flying tricks, Yan return. Hold on. This time, the giant needlebee finally used the hold trick before the attack fell on the body. The bright green honeycomb-shaped energy shield reappeared on its own surface, and it became a spherical shape and still did not stop in midair. The giant stinger wasps that were flying upside down were completely enclosed. Next second. Stab. Just like the grinding of golden stone, in the harsh grinding sound, the large metal needlebee swept past the side of the giant needlebee. Moment. The hold shield was broken, and the Yan return was also successfully counteracted. But the large metal needlebee that just flew by suddenly stopped in midair using the quick turnaround technique. He stabbed at the back pocket of the big hornbee's vest, which was flying upside down without losing his momentum. Malicious pursuit. Substitute, Sakagi shouted. Follow closely. With a sound of puff, a white energy smoke screen exploded behind the big needlebee, through a heart-warming metal big needlebee. Immediately after, the rapid vibration of the insect wings erupted, and a dazzling evolutionary light bloomed from the giant needlebee that rushed into the sky from the energy smoke screen. Mega, evolve. With the deep voice of Sakagi, who was holding the keystone on the super wristband, a splendid colorful light band spread out, connecting 2 by 2 with the same extending light band on the giant needlebee. All of a sudden, beer. Accompanied by the appearance of a bright double helix color structure phantom, the large needlebee, whose whole body was shrouded in white light, suddenly raised its head and let out a high-pitched insect chirping. In an instant, the originally pure white light of evolution gradually turned into a splendid iridescent luster. And under this light with more eyes, the shape of the giant needlebee gradually began to change amazingly. Its original round worm body was quickly elongated, and the connection between the bodies was no longer tightly combined, but a black link part grew. The antennae at the top of the head are shortened and extended back, the mouth is sharper, and the eyes are elongated. The shape of the needle arm became like a knight's spear, and the feet also turned into double needles. The overall stance became more stern. Its appearance. It can be said that except for the color, it is basically the same as Baizi's giant hornby. Mega transformation, or, in other words, super giant hornby, join. Race, big needlebee, mega form. Attribute, insect poison. Feature, adaptability. Level, quasi-god high price, level 87, temporary blessing. Potential, quasi-god. HP, 65, attack, 150, defense, 40, special attack, 15, special defense, 80, speed, 145. 1. Props, focus mirror, big needlebee mega stone. Status, perfect. Law comprehension, insect 1%. Introduction, one of the former insect king candidates in the Viking forest, experienced in hundreds of battles, Sakaji's absolute trump card, 453. Although the previous rounds of confrontation can almost be said to be fought by Baizi holding the nose. But at this moment, through the faint connection between each other after Mega Evolution, after vaguely aware of the energy level gap of the opponent's hornby that was completely crushed by himself, Sakagi suddenly felt in his heart. Da-ding. Mega Evolution is worthy of being a miraculous force capable of changing the world order. Compared to this, the giant transformation, that can only be used in the Galar region is a bit dwarfed. See you in detail. While sighing, he turned his eyes to Baizi, who seemed to have suddenly lost his mind, and his voice was reserved and calm. Come on, let's start the second leg. All right. Hearing this, Baizi withdrew his gaze towards the sky, stretched out his hand to brush the broken hair scattered in front of his eyes, and slowly brushed it behind his head. Before dealing with the next thing, we really need to decide first. The victory of this battle. It's not the second round, but the warm-up. It's over. The voice fell. All of a sudden, a deep and terrifying aura of destruction, accompanied by a black and red energy luster, emerged from the body of the metal hornet. 594. Between you and me, there is a dimension gap. Please complete the order. This feeling. Sakaji's face froze suddenly, cold sweat dripped out of his forehead, and a strong sense of crisis stimulated his brain, making him desperately shouted, Big Needlebee, hurry up. Hurry up and use high-speed exercise. Instant, the supergiant Needlebee fluttered its wings, and the more powerful speed given by the Mega Evolution turned it into a golden flowing shadow. The sound barrier is broken at the moment of activation. Completely beyond the limit of ordinary people's dynamic vision. And face this. Baizi started pretending to stop when. Whether it's dodging or struggling is meaningless. He shook his head, raised his hand and made a fingertip universe gesture. Because the difference between you and me, the big needlebee, is the gap of dimension. Words fall. In an instant, the world seemed to lose its color and fell into a black and white film-like freeze. And this vast pale picture scroll. In the next second, it was pierced by a flashing scarlet flashing shadow. The world seemed to be divided by this red line, and the sharp and ear-piercing sound of the calendar exploded. The atmosphere was distorted, and there was a strong sense of distortion. Sakagi and Athena on the side were uncontrollably dizzy. The eldest cat also arched his back like frizz, his sharp claws like sickle hooks penetrated deep into the soil, and his pupils almost shrunk into a line. At the same time, a terrifying aura spread out as if everything had fallen into the big destruction. Within a few miles, all creatures have an instinctive sense of panic at this moment. They want to escape, but the fatal crisis is like a sword of Damocles hanging directly at the top door, falling at any time. Down. Make them not dare to move. Boom. The red light spread, and the impact of the surging air waves swept all directions. For a long time, the light gradually dissipated, and the air waves stopped for a while. In the midst of all the silence, the giant needlebee, who had already withdrawn from the super evolution, and the large needlebee mega stone, scattered around it fell from the sky. Seeing it is about to fall to the ground. The fur was soaked, the cat boss with a collapsed appearance reluctantly drove his body, and caught the giant stinger in midair, which was already in a coma and was on the verge of death. Secondary damage. You commanded the big needlebee hundreds of Sakagi's big needlebee. You get what you get. Battle plus 3-0, big needlebee experience plus 1-5, power of destruction, proficiency increased, double needle proficiency plus 3. CFED. The system beep sounds. And opposite. Covered in cold sweat, Sakagi, who had woken up from a chaotic consciousness, looked extremely bad, panting, holding back the throbbing and tingling nerves, staring at the opposite slowly. The metal hornet slowly fell to Bai Zi's side. Hoarseness. Then in the end, what kind of power is? I'm sorry I can't tell you that. Bai Zi habitually handed Big Needlebee a bonus ability block after the battle, and shrugged in response. After all, he did not have the habit of explaining his secrets to his opponents before or after the battle. Do not know. You just don't know. The air fell silent. And soon after Sakagi silently put away the large needlebee and handed it to Athena on the side to send it back to the spacecraft for treatment. Coax, _ A silver-gray aircraft shaped like a motorcycle galloped close to the sea in the direction of Bai Zi and Sakagi, and behind the weightless motorcycle, there was a diamond-shaped aircraft. Aircraft. It comes. Bai Zi's eyes narrowed slightly, and after taking the giant needlebee back into the Pokeball, he lifted his finger lightly and tapped it on a Pokeball around his waist. Sana tilde. Immediately, the graceful figure of Shinado with short lavender hair was transformed from the light. The tender eyes fell on Bai Zi as soon as he appeared. Soon, these two unique small aircraft landed next to the spaceship of Sakagi. Immediately after, the crystal canopy above the weightless motorcycle slowly lowered. His face was pale, and Sachi, who was wearing a dress transformed from the rocket's uniform, stepped down, and behind her, in the raised hatch, a short-statured dwarf also jumped out of the aircraft. Chakra. Bai Zi recognized the identity of this little dwarf at a glance. It was Chakra, one of the 3 beasts, who belonged to Sachi. According to the original story in the special chapter, this little dwarf once privately convened and served as the leader of the Rockets for a period of time shortly after Sakagi disbanded the Rockets. However, it was soon overthrown by the 4 generals, headed by Apollo. In short, he's a guy whose ambition doesn't match his own strength. Boss Sakagi. Sakagi, boss. Moreover, compared to Sachi's respect, this guy Chakra is reluctant. After seeing Bai Zi, he didn't know which tendon was wrong, and suddenly said, "By the way, Boss Sakagi, is this kid your long-lost son?" Sakagi frowned, and Bai Zi frowned. On Bai Zi's side, Shinado, who seemed to be staring at Sachi at first, suddenly turned cold, as if the ice that never melted for 10,000 years was swept toward this little dwarf. Everyone present only felt a flower in front of their eyes. Next second. Puff _________. The voice of the sharp tool human flesh sounded. I don't know when Shinado, who had appeared beside Sakagi and Sachi, was holding a mind spear, the top of the lavender mind power spear, and Chakra, whose throat was directly penetrated, had round eyes, and he didn't dare to ignore it. With a letter, he raised his hand and scratched in the direction of Shinado. Immediately, his arms sank, completely losing his breath. Tick, tick. The donated blood dripped down the telekinesis spear, and in the blink of an eye, it gathered into a pool on the grass below. Ah! The cat boss, whose hair exploded again, let out a vigilant whimper, and laid his body in front of Sakagi. The corner of Sakagi's mouth twitched uncontrollably. Sachi's eyelids twitched wildly, and his figure collapsed almost immediately, and he threw out several Pokeballs from his cuffs like a stress response. Boss Cat, Jewel Starfish, and 2 only Curse Dolls. The 4 auras are at the lowest level and are also Heavenly Kings, especially the 2 Curse Dolls, which are almost infinitely close to the powerful level of the peak of the championship. At this moment, it is obvious. Wrap her around in the middle. And aside. Sakagi, who saw this scene, looked at the two cursed dolls, and his eyes gradually darkened. Another trainer. He never knew that some of his subordinates had reached the championship level. 595. What are you fighting for? In Sakaji's impression, among the senior cadres of the Rockets, the 4 generals, and the 3 beasts, belong to the same senior cadres, but they are completely different in terms of strength and importance. Can't compare at all. In Apollo of the 4 generals, is in charge of the scientific unit, the most elite core of the rocket team, and although he is also a senior cadre, he has the right to dispatch other cadres. Inside the Rockets, they were dubbed the highest cadre, again, and the status and power were only under Sakagi, and he could almost be said to be the second in command of the Rockets. Moreover, he is also the strongest trainer of the Rockets except for Sakagi on the bright side, and the ace Black Ruga and Forkbat in his hand are powerful holdings that are infinitely close to the championship field. Then there is Athena, who acts as the logistics manager of the Rockets. All the finances, experiments, and logistics support of the Rockets are all coordinated by her. The Rockets number 3. There are also Lance, who is transferred from the previous battle in the Golden City, and Lambda, who died in the hands of Baizi, who are also in charge of the overall training of the lower-level troops and the smuggling of elves. As for the 3 beasts, except for some special offensive operations and guarding work, in the Rockets, except for a senior cadre title, there is no other real power and duties at all. Therefore, the 3 beasts, in popular terms, in fact, is the Rockets' senior thugs. The 3 of them were originally loners walking on the edge of the gray area. Embarrassing situation. A quasi-king. Moreover, it is still a quasi-celestial king in one hand. It was not until he joined Team Rocket that he broke through one by one under the supply of Team Rocket's resources, and officially set foot in the realm of heavenly kings. But now it doesn't look like that. Sakagi knew that he joined the Rockets with his own purpose, but he didn't care. Power, wealth, power. As long as you dedicate your loyalty, show your value, and use it for the Rockets, Sakagi can reward them generously. A champion trainer. And it's not an ordinary championship-level hidden identity, and he works hard in the Rockets. Is it just for the resources to enter the realm of the king? Impossible. The other party must have other unknown purposes. Sakagi got in touch with what Baizi said before about the Mewtwo experimental data and the genes of Dream and Mewtwo that were brought out from the Yumi Mountain underground experimental base. Used. The target is Cheomung. Sakaji's eyes froze. The drooping right fingers subconsciously twitched. This is a symptom of his killing intent. But the killing starts. Next moment. But he was forcibly pressed by Sakagi again. He glanced at Baizi, who was looking as usual not far away, and the strange-colored Shinado in front of him, who was like an abyss and whose breath also made him horrified. His eyes suddenly froze, like an old monk. Silently standing in the same place. Cute. JPG. And aside. At the moment when all the elves were released, Sachi screamed badly, and this sudden incident disrupted her hidden plan. But the most important thing right now is to think about how to get out. After all, no one can understand the horror of this man Sakagi better than her. Not to mention. And this cruel and outrageous Shinado who doesn't know whether he is an enemy or a friend. Yu Guang swept the aircraft behind Shinado, and Sachi began to think silently about the next escape plan. First, find a way to get back to the side of the aircraft. Between thoughts, as Shinado waved his arm, Chakra's body was thrown aside. And at the same time, it seems to have sensed the death of the owner. In the successive crisp sounds, a full 13 elves rushed out of the release rays. Among them, a large steel snake, an armored bird and 13 elves rushed out. Foritos used as a bomb by him. The strongest big steel snake should be his main battle elf, the first-level king of heaven. As for the remaining 12, I am afraid they are all tool pets, and there is not even a quasi-king. ... Ask for flowers. Roared Tilda. The moment the big steel snake appeared, it made a mournful roar, and as it roared, the body of the 11 Fletos suddenly lit up with dazzling light. It was a big explosion. Baizi immediately made a judgment, frowned slightly, and looked at Shinado. No words are needed. As if there was a consonance in her heart, Shinado raised her vacant left arm and pinched it while smiling back at Baizi. In an instant, the lavender hood that suddenly rose wrapped all the 13 elves and chakras in it. With a wave of Shinedo's slender arm, the sound of swipe disappeared in place. Boom 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 boom. In an instant, a series of dull explosions came from the direction of the sea. As for Shinado, he slowly turned his attention to Sachi, whose body was tensed and his mental power was highly concentrated. Sachi. Not good. Curse the doll, hurry up. Sachi's reaction is not unpleasant. After realizing the coldness in Shinado's eyes when he looked at him, he ran away without thinking. As for confrontation, she is not stupid. Not to mention Sakaji's strange attitude, just the moment Shinado looked over, the almost unstoppable fear conveyed to her by his cursed doll made Sachi. There is no more fluke and confrontation. Joke. These two cursed dolls that I have been with since childhood are real champions. It is an evil beast that has seen blood, human life, and even devoured souls. This level of ghost-type elves, in the case of having an attribute advantage, are 2-on-1. Is it just because of one look at each other that they are timid? What are you fighting for? P.S. After 2 days of rest, I feel that my physical condition is much better. I will resume the update tomorrow. I also thank the Sirius, A Dream, The Most Beautiful, and other bigwigs for their giving during this period encouragement and support. Thank you so much. Beg. 596. Become a legend with the human body. Sachi's choice can be said to be astonishingly decisive, after confirming Shinado's hostility and his own incompetence. She made the best choice for her own safety without any hesitation. Abandoning the companionship since childhood, but also the most confident to intercept the two cursed dolls of Shinado. Same life, suicide flow of 2 champion-level ghost elves, how could she be able to get a moment of respite for her? Then use the speed of the cat boss to bring her to the shore directly into the water, and finally rely on the gem starfish and the vast deep sea to avoid the pursuit. This is the best escape she expected. Life plan. However, the plan is good. But what she faced was Shinado, who had already exceeded the limit of a champion and stepped into the realm of quasi-gods. Therefore, 453, Sachi's words have not been fully spoken. Next second. With a wave of Shinado's sus hand, the sea of psychic power that was almost substantive surged up in an instant, completely submerging the two cursed dolls, the cat boss and the gem starfish. And Sachi felt an irresistible pulling force acting on her own body. She was pulled in front of Shinado's raised palm without any resistance. Her pale face was facing her palm, her body seemed to be bound by invisible chains, hanging inch from the ground. Shoes mid-air. No. As if his tongue was deliberately blocked, Sachi was not only unable to move at all, but couldn't even speak. He could only look at the opponent's slender white fingers and slowly click on his own. On his forehead. Moment. She felt as if her consciousness had entered the front-loading washing machine, first dazzling, then colorful, until finally, it turned into a blank. Baizi quietly watched Shinado read the other party's memory. With Shinado's current mental strength, reading the memory of a human trainer no longer has to be as rude as before, and he can do it with ease. But obviously, to deal with Sachi, it is obvious that there is no need to be so delicate. Baizi thought to himself. After a few seconds, Shinado slowly opened his eyes. In the elegant eyes, a ray of scarlet flickered. And in this very moment, sea of thought power that enveloped the cursed doll and other 4 elves also suddenly set off a stormy wave. The lavender wave turned into a tidal whirl, and in the blink of an eye, a terrifying tornado was set off around Shinado. Sakagi, who was close, suddenly retreated with his cat boss. With lingering fear on his face, he looked at the psychic storm that engulfed the position where he was standing. The corners of his eyes twitched. First, the giant Hornby, then this Shinado. These two flashing individuals, whose energy levels are almost the same as their own giant Hornby, burst out with power, but they are all far from their own. On top of your own stingray. Hard to do. Is a flashing individual really so much stronger than an ordinary individual? Sakagi couldn't understand, but was shocked. Shinado. At this time, Baizi's soft drink suddenly sounded. Instantly. As the power of thought gradually dissipated, Shinado, who was standing in the air, was exposed with his palm on the top of Sachi's head. The grass under his feet has long been twisted into a circle of potholes as if it was split by a random blade, and the four elves that had fallen into the tide of thought power had long since disappeared. Only Saki, who was already awake and couldn't stop his eyes from frightened. I am sorry. Shinado smiled apologetically at Baizi, and the warm telepathy seemed to be completely unable to feel the decisiveness of the killing. It's okay. Baizi also didn't care, shook his head, and then said, it looks like this guy should be. The problem is already obvious. Otherwise, Shinado, who has always been calm about things other than Baizi, would not have such a big reaction because of it. Yes. Shinado also nodded as Baizi expected, and swept his gaze to Sachi, as cold as frost. In fact, when I saw the other party, I was almost sure of the other party. It's the culprit that caused my previous experience. Because of the other party's breath, I still can't forget it. And the memory read also confirmed it. It was this guy who provided the funds, equipment, and genetic data for that lab. Speaking of this, Shinado suddenly smiled. Speaking of which, I would also like to thank this lunatic who intends to convert himself into a legend. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have met you, Baizi, would I? Looking at Shinado's sweet smile, for some reason, Baizi always felt that he saw Ryugu Reina, Saya, Bue Yanye, from this smile. Wife you know. Ha ha tilde. Yeah. Baizigan smiled and nodded. He didn't feel anything before, but now it seems that Shinado's love for him is a little too heavy. However, Baizi suddenly raised his eyebrows and asked, you said just now that this guy wants to turn himself into a legend. Shinado nodded indifferently and said, this guy has been different from ordinary people since he was a child, both in appearance and thinking. She has an extremely strong obsession with survival, but she doesn't want to trust anyone. Therefore, rather than a human trainer, she wants to be a great being who attributes great power to herself and possesses the power and longevity of a legendary elf. Do you attribute great power to yourself? This kind of thinking, in fact, in the elf world, people have been doing 4.3, but they directly aimed at the legend, trying to achieve the legend with the body of a human. I have to say, it's okay, a crazy guy indeed. I don't know what kind of experience it was, and it made the other party's crazy idea. However, Baizi was not interested in the reason and past of Sachi's idea. What he cared about was how Shinado was going to deal with this guy. And, in the end, is it possible to be completely freed from the resentment and fear buried in the bottom of my heart? So Shinado, what are you going to do with this guy? P.S. This has been paving the way for a long time, mainly for Shinado's next exclusive power and form. The next chapter is finished, and then the protagonist starts to turn tables all over the world. 597. Indulge in the endless nightmare, the unprecedented Z form. Of course it's the easiest way to fight back. There is a creepy shudder in Shinado's tender telepathy. She raised her hands. In Sachi's terrified expression, he was placed on either side of the other's brain. It shouldn't be able to heal this unbearable pain in a place with Baizi. However, this nightmare is still going to be returned to you today. Give me. Indulge in this endless nightmare forever. In an instant, a dazzling and clear colorless light bloomed from Shinedo's palm, instantly wrapping Sachi's brain in it. Spiritual Corridor. With the release of this skill that Baizi never knew about, it was completed. The dazzling light suddenly shrank. No one was in Sachi's brain. And with the light dissipated, it was revealed that Sachi's body, who was thrown on the ground by Shinedo, suddenly trembled like an electric shock. 25-1. Like a green caterpillar twisting wildly on the ground, the unfocused pupils were full of horror, and the pale complexion even appeared a little blue. That was the result of extreme fear and pain. The expression that can be shown. And the fact is true, Sachi at this time is in the world, constructed by her own spiritual power. There. She will experience the same experience as Shinedo when she was in the Moonlight Mountain underground laboratory when she was still Alora's, and she will be reincarnated just before she is about to be saved. And it never ends. It's what Shinedo gave to Sachi, the final result. And this moment. The system beep also sounds. Your Shine duo defeated the Sachi group. God rewarded hard work. Got a little. Experience value +10. Skill proficiency has been strengthened. Your Xanadu comprehends his own exclusive skill. Spiritual Corridor. Spiritual Corridor. Baizi was slightly surprised when he was about to check Shinedo's data panel. Sa-ni-. Accompanied by the sudden rise of the colored double helix structure phantom from the surface of Shinedo's body, Shinedo, whose whole body was enveloped by the evolved white light, suddenly raised his head and let out a long, ethereal and melodious groan. This is a brand new super evolution. An indescribable spiritual connection flooded Baizi's heart at this moment, the joy of seeing the light as if the dust had dissipated, accompanied by an indescribable induction, made him know instantly the change of Shinedo at this time. But whether it is the super evolution of the X form or the Y form, Shinedo has been completely unblocked, right? Could it be that there is a third super evolutionary form besides this? Baizi was shocked in his heart. And this moment. With the surging power of evolution, in the void, there seems to be a spiritual, big source, being opened, pouring towards Shinedo below. Immediately after. A pink-purple ring mark suddenly condensed into the void and fell into the forehead of Shinedo, who was in the long light of evolution. At this moment, it is like a bird flying into the sky and a fish entering the sea. In the induction of the link, a power that seemed to be hidden in the bottom of his heart and was covered by the bondage finally broke through the barrier and completely integrated into his body. In a nutshell, the feeling is 1. I have a pearl, which has been locked by the dust for a long time. Now the dust is full of light, and it shines through the mountains and rivers. And at the same time, your Shinedo has been recognized by the spirit, authority, and obtained the mark of authority. Spirit not unsealed, need to be activated. Hint, the conditions for unblocking need to be approved by the gods of the lake. Seal of authority, gods of the lake. Baizi was stunned again. But then, his eyes were attracted by the new posture of Shinedo, who gradually emerged from the white light. The original lilac short hair has been changed to long hair reaching the waist, and the wing-like head corners are decorated like open wings, becoming more gorgeous and delicate. The body became thinner. The plate on the chest was completely red, and it was fully opened like an open heart. The upper body is a tight black dress, the arms are black gloves that reach the elbows, and under the waist that is gripped by yin-yang, there is a gauze skirt that flutters down like clouds and smoke, revealing a long and slender gauze skirt. Beautiful legs. Is this Shinedo's new attitude? Staring at Lingran, who is different from the X shape, elegant and luxurious, and also different from the Y shape, Lingran is full of the ultimate temptation and mysterious new posture like a witch. There was a hint of intoxication in his eyes. After a long while, Baizi, whose eyes became clear again, regained consciousness from the charm of his elf. Subconsciously, he touched the tip of his nose. Immediately after. Of his eyes. Race, Shinado purple flash C form, X form, Y form. Attribute, super fairy. Characteristic, spiritual master exclusive. All abilities related to spiritual power consumption are halved, and the effect and power are doubled. Level, quasi-god peak temporary blessing, quasi-god primary, level 80, 15/100. Potential, level 1 god. HP, 168 attack, 165 defense, 165 special attack, 225 125 special defense, 115 speed, 180. Exclusive skill, spiritual corridor pulling the opponent's spirit into the world, constructed by itself or the opponent's spirit power. All factors in the world include time and place, quality, etc., are controlled by the caster. Skills, charming voice, cry, shadow clone, mind power, hypnosis, draining kiss, teleportation, illusion light, 453 life water droplets, coquetry, meditation, spiritual power, healing fluctuations. Close black lens bracket. Genetic skills, black eyes, farewell gifts. Props, super orb bracelet. Increases the power of superpower skills, warms up to strengthen mental power, and improves the perception and perception ability of superpower attribute law factors. Passive function, can be used with time interval world tree species. Law comprehension, super energy system 5%. Authority, spirit not unsealed, needs to be activated. Status, perfect. Introduction, talented, possessing a powerful spiritual power far beyond that of the same clan. It perfectly integrates the genetic sequences of the two superior legends of Dream and Cheomung, thus obtaining a transcendent supernatural power. Power and ability, the body contains the ultimate power of super evolution. Read at a glance. There was a glimpse of Baizi in his eyes, and he no longer paid attention to the unprecedented new power obtained by Shinado. Instead, he immediately reached out to the person in the air and waited for the other party to slow down. Slowly fall, as if behind the shoulders. Sending this belated congratulations. Quote. Congratulations on your new life, Shinado. Sana tilde. Shinado arched her little head and responded naively, as if she was back when she was still Laura's. The most like Baizi. P.S. Super Shinado Z, which form please join. 598. Target, Raven City. After a short period of tenderness, Sakagi also got up and said goodbye, and, with great discernment, left behind the trophies brought by Sachi and Chakra. The two small private ships. Man aircraft. To be honest. Although Chakra's specially made, coffin board, that even his legs can't make him straight, Baizi is grateful and insensitive. But the anti-gravity motorcycle that Sachi rode was obviously transformed from the Sacred Bird 3, Sealand Air motorcycle type aircraft that Silver Group had sold in limited quantities. The price of this thing itself is close to 300 million. Coupled with the transformation of Sachi, I am afraid that the whole thing can't be won without 3.5 billion. But something. Expensive reason. Shenbird Type 1 foot that only supports ultra-low altitude and the Shenbird Type 2 feet that supports both land and air use below 100 meters. Magic Bird 3 is not only limited to 99 units worldwide, and only support customers who own Shenbird Type 1 foot and Shenbird Type 2 feet for sale. It can be said that the rarity is the first to be filled. At the same time, the Sheniao 3 fully supports high-altitude flight within 5,000 meters, with a maximum speed of 800 km per hour, which is completely comparable to ordinary passenger aircraft, and is almost close to the Fast Dragon's maximum hourly shorthand half of the recording. The no-gravity speed on land is close to 500 km per hour, and the tire mode is also enough to compete with the Wind Speed Dog's long-distance running speed, which is between 340 to 360 km per hour. 600 meters is a submarine. It supports fully automatic driving, has a luxurious deformation compartment, and can switch between the two writing modes of writing and back-to-back. Have a protective stance. And the whole fuselage adopts a new type of energy-absorbing steel, which can completely resist the energy-level bombing of the King in a short period of time. Cool shape, practical functions, and extremely high safety. No one can refuse such a big toy that can go up into the sea, and neither can BuyZ. However, the Sacred Bird 3 was fully booked on the day of pre-sale, and it is difficult to buy with money. Now that he can get one for free, BuyZ will naturally not refuse. Certainly. Before using this modified version of the Sacred Bird 3, it is obviously necessary to test and master the functional operation first. This is naturally not difficult for BuyZ, who has advanced mechanical science skills. Using the material of Chakra's shuttle-type airship, BuyZ even made simple modifications and optimizations for this Shenbird 3, making the operating system more suitable for his feel and get used to. Let's do this for now. After this matter is dealt with, load this guy with a rotom, it will be perfect. BuyZ threw the wrench into the toolbox, stretched and stood up, patted the interior and the completely changed Sacred Bird 3, and thought with a satisfied expression. Rotoms belong to a very special kind of elves. The body is composed of electric ions, which can not only shuttle freely in the circuit, but also enter the machine to activate it and become a lotto, with different special abilities. Mu form, mechanical body. In the anime TV, Sun, Moon. The Rotom Pokédex held by Ash is a special form of Rotom formed from Rotom's entry into the Elf Pokédex of Alola. And beyond that. Heating Rotom, which is good at flame and enters the oven. Cleaning Rotom, which can spray water and enters the washing machine. And Spinning Rotom, which enters the fan and can blow strong winds. Wait. Different machines will bring Rotom new attitudes and abilities. BuyZ is also looking forward to how his Sacred Bird 3 feet will change after he has a Rotom. To know. This motorcycle, which has been rebuilt and optimized by Sachi and BuyZ, has an attack system. Does BuyZ like this thing very much? On the side, the mind force manipulated like a virtuous little wife sorted out the toolbox and put it into the cabin, Shinado said softly. BuyZ nodded, and looked at Shinado, who was always an inch away from the ground, still in Z form, and couldn't help but fascinate again. Excluding the strange charm that seems to be magical, the overall feeling of Shinado in Z form is very delicate. The shoulders are like the moon, and the feet are like branches, which is very beautiful. Human perception. Such a gesture. It really hit BuyZ's XP. However. Is it alright to maintain this attitude all the time? BuyZ asked with concern. It doesn't matter. Shinado shook her head slightly, wondering if it was because of her morphological change, but her tone was extraordinarily soft and pitiful. With such a posture, the concubine has a spiritual recovery ability that is far superior to the other two forms, and it can even be said that maintaining such a form, because of the connection with the Daewon, the concubine not only will it not be consumed, but it will subtly continuously enhance its own spiritual power. Besides, facing BuyZ's gaze, Shinado suddenly blinked playfully. You can tell from the concubine, BuyZ, you also like the attitude of the concubine, don't you? Saying that, Shinado tapped her toes, with a little cunning and a smile of ecstasy, and turned around in a circle. The skirt flutters like a dream. Cough cough. BuyZ, who was seen through by his own elf, couldn't help blushing. After retracting the wind speed dog, he directly straddled the Sacred Bird 3, that was transformed into a motorcycle. Will Li Hao change the subject and say, Then what, do you want to try this big guy with me? BuyZ patted the cushion behind him. Okay. Shinado was also very understanding and ignored it, floating up, leaning gently behind BuyZ, with her head close to her, and her wristband around her waist. Then let's go. BuyZ turned on the switch, twisted his right hand, buzzing. The engine sound, which made people's blood rush but was not harsh, suddenly sounded. Next second. Sacred Bird 3, that raised the windshield was like a flaming horse running away, drawing a large semicircle on the sea surface, swooping towards the dense forest south of the outer suburbs of Shuanglong City. Enter. One by one target, the location of the Hejong branch, one of the three major branches of the Hunter Guild, Raven City. Strong. P.S. Continue the wife picture. 599. Sad Clouds, Raven Castle. The Hejong area is composed of three peninsula continents side by side. In order to link the Hejong area, there are many bridges that are famous in the elf world between the three peninsulas. Build. Among them, the Tianjian Bridge, the Fanba Suspension Bridge, the Cylinder Bridge, the Fantasy Bridge and the Village Bridge are the most famous bridges linking the central part and the east and west islands respectively. It is a famous spectacle in the fairy world. These bridges connect the large and small villages and cities in the Hejong area. Therefore, Union District is also known as the district on the bridge. However, Bai Zi, who pursues speed and owns a Sacred Bird 3 motorcycle that is completely unrestricted by terrain, is obviously not ready to take the avenue. Shuanglong City is located in the due north of the Central Peninsula, and Raven City is located in the due south of Shuanglong City. At the same time, it is also the center city of the central island in the Hejong area, just in the Hejong area. At the center of the area. Not only that, Raven City is also one of the two largest cities in the elf world. The other is also in the Hejong area, located in the port city south of Raven City, Feiyin City. However, it is contrary to the highly tense working atmosphere in Feiyin City, which is the economic and cultural center of the Hejong area. Known as an entertainment city, Raven City, which has various landmarks such as concert halls, gear stations, large arenas, small sports fields, trial houses and amusement parks, has a fun and leisurely atmosphere. The atmosphere fills the streets of the city almost all the time. It is worth mentioning that of Raven 453 ranks third in the elf world, after Mier in the Carlos region and Gongmin in the Galar region. At the same time, it is also the hometown of Bai Zi's father. If you want to go from Shuanglong City to Raven City and take the artificially built Bridge Avenue, you must detour the number 11 road on the right and take the Village Bridge, or take the number 9 road on the left to cross the Cylinder Bridge. But no matter which side you go, you must detour to at least 3 cities between the islands. Going like this, he was afraid that he might not be able to reach Raven City one day and one night. Therefore, relying on the boldness of Yi Gao, Bai Zi was going to directly traverse the largest wild forest in the Hejong area, the Lianjin Forest, to the first destination where the Hunter Guild is located. It's here. At 3:50 in the afternoon, under the watchful eyes of the travelers along the street, Bai Zi drove into Raven City, a place that was both familiar and unfamiliar in his memory. 11 Cool, Magic Bird 3. A handsome young man. 1. The amazing alienation Shinado full of strange charm and beauty on the back seat of the locomotive. These are all eye-catching focal points. But Bai Zi soon discovered that although his group was very eye-catching, the focus of most people was not on them. Not only that, at this moment, the streets and alleys of Raven City are filled with a feeling of restlessness. Many pedestrians and residents on the street looked sad, and refreshed some kind of news on their mobile phones, communicators or elf bracelets with an unacceptable look. But the more you brush, the more suffocated your expression becomes. Did something happen? With such doubts, Bai Zi temporarily parked the car on the side of the road and opened the browser on the elf bracelet. After a moment, Bai Zi's eyes flashed clearly. Just yesterday, in the third qualifying match of the Galar region's much-anticipated competition, Nizi lost 3-2 to Mikali, becoming the first to fail in the Galar Gym Challenge team, by. However, no one underestimated Nizi because of this. Because he is also the first Galar challenger to fight without using the slightest boost ability, that is, giant transformation. In a head-to-head duel, Being able to hold a stalemate with Michaeli until the last round before losing, already shows that the opponent is indeed a real champion trainer. And after that, perhaps because this challenge failed, Chibana, the challenger of the fourth-ranking match that was scheduled to take place 7 days after this battle, was openly invited to fight on the Elf Online, promising to ask a deck to do the same by not extremely large change the timing of the battle between the two sides. A deck readily agreed. This afternoon, that is, when Baizi was driving the Sacred Bird 3 in the Lianjin Forest, CFED. In the battle that carried the hope and dignity of the United States, a deck was finally defeated by Chibana. And it was still absolutely fair on both sides, and neither Mega Evolution nor extremely large augmentation was used. In the case of a deck defeated by Chibana head-on, it's a pity. If Addict's will to be a champion is not broken, he has at least a 70% chance of winning this battle. He simply flipped through the 3 battles between a deck and Chibana. In the video, Baizi couldn't help but sigh. In fact, Baizi did not exaggerate. Although it has always been rumored that a deck was completely depressed because of the death of his partner, he who lost the heart of the championship may be the end of the championship. But in the video, the tactical command he showed in the 3 battles with Chibana, as well as the level of the elves on the court, are not inferior to Chibana at all, even faintly pressing the other side. To know, Chibana is not weak at all. Enemy, by Dandy, who is definitely one of the 2 peaks in the regional championship class, could be a weakling. With Baizi's eyesight, Chibana is the most expensive champion for the last time. The normal level of the Ace Aluminum Steel Dragon may have reached the peak of the championship. And a deck, who is able to suppress Chibana from beginning to end, could be the so-called end of the championship. The reason for the final defeat. It is entirely because there is no way to confront and offset the blessing of Chibana's self-potential, and the other side is finally broken by the opponent's strength, thus falling into a defeat. It's a pity. Baizi sighed again. If a deck hadn't experienced the hardship of losing his partner, or, like Uncle Lu, had turned that hardship into a source of progress, Addict's final achievement would probably not have been better than Yulong's. Fairy and Sakagi are worse. Shook his head. Baizi closed the elf.net, which was so popular because of the 2 championship battles, and opened the virtual map marked before. After some scaling, finally, he fixed his eyes on a medieval garden area in the western suburbs of Raven City. Raven Castle Manor. Interesting. Looking at the area on the virtual map where the Hunter Guild Hujong branch is located, and the highly overlapping area, Baizi's expression is intriguing. I didn't expect the Hunter Guild branch in the Hujong area to actually it will overlap with the famous Raven Castle to such an extent. Now, I finally know why the Hunter Guild branch in the Hujong area can hide so secretly. 600. Kamiser, to demolish the house. That Raven Castle was named Raven, the same name as Raven City. And in fact, the name of Raven City is precisely because the former owner of Raven Castle Manor, Raven Lawrence, the former founder of this Raven City state, created and named it. Later, as the United States entered the Alliance era, the city-state of Raven was officially renamed Raven City. Since then, the mayor of Raven City has been re-elected by members of the Clarence family almost all the time. Even if there are a few changes in the middle, the discerning person can see that Claw is among them. The shadow of the Lens family behind. Centuries of development. Stayed on the bright side as it did in the old days. But secretly, in Raven City, the industry of the Lawrence family has almost completely spread over all walks of life in this super city. From birth to death, so to speak. The lives of nearly all Ravens have been shrouded in the Clarence family sphere of influence. From the hospital where they were born, the school they attended, the unit they worked in, and the cemetery where they were buried. These are all industries involved in the Lawrence family. However, the reputation of the members of the Lawrence family in Raven City seems to have always been good. Anyway, in the limited memory of Baizi, Lawrence's reputation among the residents of Raven City has always been indifferent. No negative. But if you want to say that such a huge family group is as pure as Wang Qingchuan, then Bai Zi's designation is unbelievable. Can develop to this extent. If there is no gray means outside of business or outside tricks, then people are really regarded as fools. Some people have made a special survey and statistics. If a member other than Lawrence becomes the mayor, then there will inevitably be some emerging potential companies that will be targeted and suppressed. After bankruptcy, then the benevolent Lawrence family came forward, expelled the incompetent mayors, gave certain compensations to those who were suppressed, and finally annexed the other party. The mystery in this is enough to ponder. As for Raven Castle and the nearby manor, it was semi-publicized by the Lawrence family as a historical relic more than 100 years ago. Every year, a large number of tourists come to visit this historic castle manor, which is a landmark architectural attraction in Raven City. In the afternoon sun, the obsidian-like, Sacred Bird 3, slowly stopped at the intersection on the opposite street outside the Raven Castle Manor. Turn off the locomotive, jump off, and gently press the electronic lock on Bai Zi, who is slowly supported by Shinado in the back seat. Drop drop tilde. In the crisp mechanical sound. The black crystal shield rises to cover the body. Get your keys. Holding Shinado, who has always been suspended in the air at an inch above the ground. Bai Zi walked slowly to the gate of the manor of Raven Castle, and sighed in his eyes. Speaking of which, I haven't returned to Raven City for almost 10 years. It was on my 5th birthday. Bai Zi's tone was inexplicable. Then, he looked at Shinado, who slowly opened his eyes beside him. How about it, can you determine the specific direction? Sorry. Shinado shook his head apologetically, and a tender telepathy sounded slowly in Bai Zi's ears. The entire castle, including the castle and the underground of the manor, were all made of evil attributes. The spar is constructed and wrapped, and the spiritual power cannot be probed deeply at all. I can only vaguely feel that there is a lot of life aura hidden underneath. It's okay. Bai Zi squeezed Shinado's plain hand and said with a chuckle. Being able to determine this is actually equivalent to finding the location of the Hunters Guild. The rest of the rough work will be left to other partners. Talking. Bai Zi touched his palm to his waist. But at this time, a charming female voice with a clear sense of rhythm suddenly came from behind. If the two of you want to visit Raven Castle, I'm afraid it's a bit unfortunate, because the manor of Raven Castle will only be open for 1 day a week, and it has only been opened since the last time. It's only been 2 days. Oh. Bai Zi looked at the sound, and when he saw the person coming, his eyes flashed slightly. The street is dappled with sunlight and shade. A beautiful woman with a good appearance, the corners of her mouth slightly raised, and her whole body exuding an inexplicable sparkling beauty walked over. A tight-fitting black and yellow outfit showed her beautiful figure, and the earphones with different colors on the top of her head hung down a long black wire from each side, following her graceful pace. After shaking, Bai Zi recognized the identity of the other party at a glance. Looks like a Sparkle is the current owner of the electric gym in Raven City. It's just, I didn't expect to meet her at this time. Bai Zi narrowed his eyes slightly, and looked at the person in front of him whose prestige was not inferior to the local champion of the 4 Heavenly Kings. Gym trainer. ... Ask for flowers. As a world-famous model, Kamizli's appearance is also rare even in the fairy world, a place full of beautiful women. And this moment. Although the world-famous model seemed to speak to Bai Zi and the others, almost all of her eyes were focused on Bai Zi's side, Shinado, who was still in Z form. Bai Zi was indeed right. Main reason why Kamizli took the initiative to strike up a conversation was indeed because of Bai Zi's side, the strangely charming Shinado. As a model, Kamizli not only has a natural sense of fashion, but also has a unique and persistent pursuit of beauty. In her eyes, the more radiant and eye-catching, the more beautiful it is. And Bai Zi's Shinado. The strange charm that attracted her attention at all times was like an oversized light source in Camsley's eyes, which made her unbearably longing and loving. It's dazzlingly beautiful. Arriving in front of Bizy and Shinado, Camsley habitually lifted the wire and hair accessories around her ears, and couldn't help sighing softly. Subsequently, she raised a smile that was enough to make any man fall in love with her, and took the initiative to introduce herself. Hello, my name is Camsley, and I'm a gym trainer at Raven Gymnasium. If you are visiting Raven City, I can recommend a few good places. After a few days when Raven Castle is reopened, you can enter and visit. Oh, by the way, there will be my runway show tomorrow. Would you like to come to my Raven Gym for one night and join me tomorrow morning? No. Bizy shook his head and refused, and then, with a strange expression, he looked at the overly enthusiastic world supermodel in front of him. We didn't come to Raven City for tourism. To be precise, it can actually be defined as demolishing a home. Huh. Camsley was stunned. And right now, Bizy has already taken out a pure white elf ball exuding brilliance and threw it gently. Next second, a living body cast like a jet black crystal appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This is. Camsley's pupils widened. Necrozma. Bizy softly called out the name of this pitch-black life. His eyes were cold. Let's start. Let me lift all the things hidden under this ancient castle manor. Beg. _